Okay, I'm showing that it is connected.
All right, good deal. Well, welcome everybody. This is the executive committee portion. Pam is not here today. She had a prior engagement. She will not be here. But yeah, we can run through this pretty quickly, I think. This portion goes from 12 to 12:10, so we have about 2 minutes left. Real quick, I had an idea of maybe if we could talk with Jesse about maybe feasibility, but possibly when you become a member, assigning a CTC email address that's perhaps linked to our website. I just know there tends to be a flutter of emails going to a bunch of different places, but if we had a dedicated CTC email address that each member had, there'd be just for members. That may be a good way to organize things, but that's kind of just a budding idea. I just thought I'd bring that up here.
I love that idea. We do have one email address for fielding questions, but I don't see any reason why we couldn't all have one. I think it would help me streamline my work inbox.
Definitely. That's what I'm running into. Yeah. Same thing. Your work email is kind of, you got jobs and clients and questions flying in, and it would certainly help to separate the two. So, okay.
You could run it. You could run it by the tree council and see what everybody thinks about it.
Yeah.
So make it an agenda item for a discussion. I'll certainly bring it up in promotion since it kind of ties.
That'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be great. Yeah. I think we can add it to the agenda for the next meeting. So yeah, that's just kind of a brief thing. I added to each committee to just verify their member rosters today, just so we have those squared away for the year. And let's see. I had a question about our commissioner representative. Is that still Russell this year, or do we get a new one each year?
It's a great question, Joe. I don't know the answer. We should ask Russell Edwards. My guess is that, he was asked by the mayor to be the commissioner liaison, and that he will remain until we hear otherwise. But we should probably ask Russell.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll shoot him an email and just make sure.
Okay.
Let's see. So the annual report, Pam is working on hers, and we need to make sure, keep on Sean, make sure he knows that that's coming up. The deadline is it the next meeting in February, or is it?
It's based on the CTC bylaws have the February meeting as the annual meeting. And traditionally, this is when they submitted the report. They used to have a luncheon. This is also a time to submit a request for our new members to the mayor and commission. So it's kind of a beginning of the year, kind of out of the starting gates kind of a thing. At least that's what it has been traditionally, as far as I can piece together.
Okay. And I'll swing by your office. I saw your email before 3:30 today to sign that. Basically, our nominations for the renewing the 3 members and then accepting the nominations for the new incoming 3 members.
Yes, thank you. So, great.
I'll do that. I'll come by. I'll shoot you a call or something before I head over.
Okay.
It'll be before 3:30.
Sounds good.
Let's see. So now I've got 2 voting items. We talked about replacing the crepe myrtles were too big for landscape management to put in the ground. The root balls are huge. They're too heavy. So Phil got a quote for same price to do chalk maples. It sounded like from general discussion at the MLK event that was the front runner choice. So if we want to make a motion to replace crepe myrtles with chalk maples, we can certainly get that moved through today.
So I'll make a motion to use chalk maples instead of crepe myrtles for the tree planting at the Firefly Trail next to Old Winterville Road and Little Oak Street.
All right, I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, perfect. So the tree council will replace the crepe myrtle choice with the chalk maples. That's awesome. And then we have one other voting item, which is there's a charrette coming up very quickly. It's the ACC Sustainability Office and the South Face Institute are combining to do a clean and renewable energy action plan for Athens. So we have three options to send. There's different kinds of charrettes, I guess. See if I can find that email here.
The first one is Community and Equity on January 28th. The second one is Clean Energy Economy on February 2nd. And the third one is the Intersection of the Built and Natural Environment on February 3rd. We are allowed to send one representative to attend one charrette.
Okay. Is there any preference? Do we feel that one is most suitable for us to send?
Pam stated that she thought, let me see what, number 2 or 3 was the most applicable. I agree. I would be interested in number 3. What do you all think?
I like 3.
Yeah, that seems closest to physically what we do. You know, we're engaged in community where, you know, trees do have an effect on clean energy economy, but I think in terms of our boots on the ground service to the community, it has been, I agree, mostly number 3. Do we have a volunteer or a nomination for who we want to send?
I nominate Mary Songster. Does it have to be one of us on the executive committee?
No, it can be anybody from the tree council. Pam said that she would attend if no one else volunteered. Pam's the only one I've heard anything from. But I don't think if this has gone outside of the executive committee for discussion either. So,
Yeah. Rodney, did you have any interest in going?
I could go. What is February 3rd? That's a Wednesday. I could attend. It's something I'm definitely interested in. For me, that it's just, you know, always trying to balance everything with time.
What was the time again?
It is from 11 a.m. to 12:30.
Oh.
Okay.
So it's an hour and a half.
What about you, Mary?
That's just really not a good time for me. But I can always make it work. I mean, it is lunch.
I think I could go to it. I think I'd be in a position to speak well to it if asked. It's right up, you know, what I've been trained for.
Yeah, yeah.
What I don't know is, you know, what the CTC, you know, I don't know what the CT's views are specifically. So what I would speak to if I went would be the ordinance, you know, a canopy coverage requirement of 45%. And, you know, I could talk a little bit to what I see, you know, because I I am engaged in plans reviews. So I see the developments that are coming into the county, so I can speak to that on some level. But I guess the question I would have is, what is the CTC's position? What does the CTC overall, what does it want? I mean, for me, I would say, my perspective is to maximize benefits and reduce cost and risks over time, where trees are concerned.
Mhm. Since this is before the next official meeting, unfortunately, I think it'd be impossible for the county or the committee to vote on this. Which
I would just be falling back on my training and kind of best management practices,
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. If we keep this within as an executive committee decision, then maybe we can just, when is this, in a week?
Yeah, it's before our next meeting, so there's no way for the tree council to vote on it.
Okay. Yeah. I would be fine sending you, Rodney, since I think you make a good case. You do plans review. You've reviewed some of my plans, which I thought you had good comments on. I think, yeah, I'd be fine with either one of you going, honestly. And just keep this as an executive. Just really, in a sense, is the time. If we bring the whole committee in, then we have to hold a voting session before next Wednesday.
Okay. Well, I usually hold out Wednesdays as my, talk to people day anyway. So I kind of have that set aside time-wise anyway, so I can squeeze it in.
Okay.
That's great. I know my kids don't have school on the 1st, and I'm already kind of limited on time that week. Yeah, but everything you've said, Ronnie, sounds like a great, and then maybe a review of just what we've done over the last couple of years in terms of tree planting, in addition to the other things you mentioned. Okay, great.
Okay, well, I'll plan on that. Well, I guess we should vote on it first.
All right. I'll make a motion to nominate Rodney to be our CTC representative at the charrette being held on February 3rd, the intersection of the Built Natural Environment charrette. Anybody second?
I second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. So the CTC will be sending Rodney as our representative to the Renewable Action Energy Plan charrette.
Okay.
I think one good point, Rodney, you might be able to speak on too with the tree canopy cover is just the difference in the, as far as the ordinance goes, the overall county goal being 45%, but that the ordinance is written actually to accommodate different types of zoning. So it's not necessarily practical or feasible to require across the board coverage, but for a industrial site versus a residential versus ag.
Yes, that's a super good point. Thank you for that.
So let's see here. Where did my agenda go? Got too many windows open. Where are you? May have lost our agenda. There we go. Okay, it's back. All right, so in item 5. Okay, I see that. Yeah.
That was just something I threw in there. It was just a thought.
Yeah. Yeah, I put that link in the last email, so I can.
That was a great idea, you guys. I love it. And we'll work on a page for agendas on the website.
Sweet.
So maybe just steer people toward the link, and that way we're not throwing out that's one less set of emails are thrown out there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and just when you're wanting to look at an old one and I have created a file in my, Google Suite, but it's just nice to.
Definitely. Yeah, I didn't know that existed either. So that's great.
It's fairly new, and I just within the last month have been given the functionality to be able to post those myself. I used to have to ask somebody to do it for me, and now I'm able to just put them there. So it really helps a lot.
That's awesome. Okay. So I think that concludes the executive committee meeting. Do we need to vote to adjourn each of these individual meetings? All right. So let's go to the next one, which is same folks, the steering committee. Do I have that right? It's the four of us as the steering, or is there?
It is the executive committee plus the chairs of
Okay.
the other committees.
Okay.
So it would include Mary Songster and whoever ends up chairing the education committee.
Okay. Is that going to be Edith? Did I make that up?
I don't know. You'll need to
That's on
ask
their
them.
agenda.
I've heard different things about that, but I would just ask them who will be their chair. And as the president, Joe, it is your prerogative to ask people if they'd be interested in one of those positions.
Okay. So, okay, I'll modify the steering committee roster then. That would explain why our chairs are not present for this. That's my mistake. So I guess we can get to talking about MLK and Green Life Expo planning. So we have an individual award for Silas that we are going to talk about what his individual award should be at the next CTC meeting. So that's in the works. As far as the Georgia Arbor Day planning, it's still on Friday, February 19th. So that's coming up pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
We
do have a CTC meeting before then, I believe.
Yes. Russell said he would be happy to read the proclamation. So I did reach out to him and ask.
Awesome. And then I know Mary Songster's really been wanting to invite the commissioner, Mariah Parker, and one other person that was a commissioner.
Yeah, I can't remember her name, but she has been involved in the Bike Athens and is very interested in the Greenway.
Yeah.
I can't remember what her name is right now.
One thing we should think about or talk about is, so we'll have the officials, who can officiate by reading the proclamation. Do we have someone, we should probably have a conversation about who will be the master of ceremony or who the person is who will, basically plan and direct the event. So basically.
I think it should probably be the Trees for Tomorrow chair.
Cool. That'd be great.
That makes sense. It's kind of their pet project.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go ahead and reach out. I believe that's Phil, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I think that's a good idea to involve that district commissioner and the Firefly, but I think that should be it. I don't think we need to populate this event anymore. So
Last year we had a slew of landscape architects and landscapers. How did the word get out? And who was contacted last year?
That's a good question, Mary. So the process generally is to put out a public information release, so a media release about the event. And last year it was advertised as a public event. So we did have a couple extra people show up. This year, the tree council decided not to have a public event, to keep it just with the tree council because of COVID and social distancing.
Yeah.
So this year, probably announce the event on the day that we have it. The press release will happen, and I can reach out to public information about that. And I know they want to do one because they also want to tie in the tree canopy study that we're getting ready to do. Some aspects of that. They just want to mention it. So I'll prepare a press release so the tree council can review it on our next meeting.
I think, yeah, it sounds like we're required to notify the county that we're doing it, but I think we can definitely say.
We're not required to notify them. Technically, the forester is responsible for the Arbor Day ceremony, but the tree council's been involved pretty much every single time. So it's really whatever people want to do, whatever approach they want to make. But it is really helpful to the county and to the CTC to announce it and make it public.
Mm-hmm. I think if we make it very clear, this is a closed event for council members only, and maybe even just be vague about the location. Say just location, Firefly Trail.
Okay.
You can say due to COVID.
Yep.
Okay. So announce it beforehand, but just make the information vague. Okay.
Okay. Really no action items there. I will talk to Phil about Master of Ceremonies. And the other, I guess the last thing we had was the Moon Tree signage objective, which has kind of loosely come up in discussion through email.
I can talk about that, Joe. I have some information for you.
Okay.
I'm going to bring something up so you can see it.
Okay.
Basically, landscape management will be placing a sign there. It came up and we were directed to get a sign up right away. So that's what's going to happen. So the council doesn't really have to do anything at this point.
Okay.
Let me show you a copy of that sign.
Okay. Yeah, she reached out and said she was on it and she wanted to talk about it a little bit, and then it kind of went cold from there.
Okay.
So that's fine. I was looking into the historic state markers website, and it looked pretty involved.
Mm-hmm.
So
this is a copy of what they intend to post there.
That's awesome. So will this be a sign or a plaque or something like that?
That's a good question. We don't know the exact, final product. I'm not 100% sure, but they are thinking about, how to keep it there and keep it from walking away or that sort of thing.
Mm. Yeah.
So it'll need to be durable enough to have some staying power for sure.
You maybe reach out to Josh Coons. He's done a ton of signage for State Botanical Garden.
You could. I just don't know who is creating the sign. Like,
Gotcha.
all I know is that it's coming, but I don't know who's doing it or anything. I don't know any of those details. I was just told that it would be one put up, and this is what it would, read. And
okay,
to let you all know that was what was going on with it.
Looks good.
Yeah, that looks cool.
So my experience with signs, if they're not if they're not sturdy enough, they do kind of walk away. So hopefully it'll be something that has some lasting power.
Definitely. Yeah, I would say only thing I would be concerned about is, that they not pour a giant footing right over the
Right.
critical root zone or anything like that.
Yep.
Should we be concerned? Do we need to make any actions?
Without knowing, what the thought process is about the plan, there's no way to know that. But I can circle back around and ask that we be given a heads up before they do something.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we have a lot of qualified people to review, not to make a lot of headache for them, but just as an advisory role.
Right.
Just maybe make note to Jeannie that the council would love to review those plans or the design.
Yeah, if they could put it closer to the sidewalk than the tree, I mean, that makes sense anyway. Keep people from walking over to look at it. I don't know which side of the tree it's going to go on. Parking lot side or the building side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll pass that message along.
What would be really cool is if they dedicated the 2 adjacent parking spaces on either side of that island and made the routing area.
Right. Yeah, that would be great if they could do that. I don't
almost hate to mess with it now at this point, though.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Rip it all out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I like that sign. That looks really great. Do we have any other steering committee items that we are forgetting?
The main thing, the main role of the steering committee is really to set the agenda for the tree council meetings. So it's working with the chairs, with whatever it is they're working on and how that coordinates with the tree council.
I guess it's an opportunity for us to say that if we do want to make an official item in the next agenda about these, everybody having an email.
Yeah.
I'd like to make that a point.
Okay. I like that.
We don't need to vote on having putting anything else on the website. So,
mm-hmm. And I think with those emails, I think that would be just for general voting members. If you go emeritus or advisory or step off, I think it would just go to your personal email, whatever it was.
Now, the one thing that we really have to watch about and be mindful of is that the tree council and its committees are not allowed to conduct business by email. Mm-hmm. So, people would have to really be informed that, you cannot conduct business or do really much planning by email. It has to be done at the meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the tricky part about that. And I kind of wonder if somebody could see that as, the council doing business, outside of meetings. That's the one thought I have to it. It would likely be subject to Freedom of Information,
mm-hmm.
the Freedom of Information Act, where somebody wanted to see the records, they could make the tree council show all those emails.
Mm-hmm.
So in some ways, there could be a little bit of a can of worms attached to that. There's just as as I think it through a little bit, so give that some thought for sure.
I think if that argument came up, we could even flip it back around and say, look, if we ever came to the point where we needed to be audited, all our emails are in one spot. Mm-hmm. we're not digging through our personal email accounts to show whoever's auditing us. But yeah, I think, it's a budding idea. We can certainly discuss it at the meeting. So, yeah, I think that should close the. Yep, that's it. Okay, so steering committee items are done. We're now moving into the interview work group check-in.
Hey, Joe.
How's it going, Edith? How are you?
Doing well. Hey, Mary.
Good to see you.
Hi, Rodney.
Hi, Edith.
Okay.
That was super timely, Edith. You showed up at the perfect time.
I've actually been eavesdropping.
Oh, okay.
I should have let you guys know. I find that, being a new member, I learn a lot. I sit in on other committee meetings.
Absolutely.
A general orientation.
Absolutely. So, yeah. I guess if y'all want to wait for Sean, the meeting doesn't start for another minute.
Do you want me to put up the letter that I showed you, Joe?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, I'll go ahead and put that up.
Yeah, it's not on the agenda, but it's just kind of regular executive committee business of signing the official nomination letter.
Yeah, the tree council already voted to submit these to the mayor and commission, so this is the product of doing so. And did you notice the bios at the back, or the brief information about each member, Joe?
I did not see that. That's great.
Take a look at that, because I had, if your name's on there, so if you want me to add, I mean, there's very limited space, but if I'm getting something wrong, I would love to know that I'm getting it wrong, or if I need to add something, I would love to know that as well.
Let's see. Oh, my address has changed.
Oh.
So I'm now at 705 River Hill.
River what?
Hill. That's one word. Drive.
How's it going, guys?
Hi, Sean.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, Sean.
Hi, how's it going, David?
The bottom portion of the address is correct. That's perfect. Thank you, Rodney. Hey there, Sean.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
Great.
Sean.
Hey, how you doing, Rodney?
Good.
Great. Looks like you guys are updating info.
This is just to bring it up. This is a copy of the letter that'll be sent to the mayor and commission.
Okay.
So it's requesting the renewing members here, and then the new members here. It says the dates that their terms expire, and then this second part is some brief information about each one of those members.
Great idea.
All right. Well, it looks like so Pam will not be here today. She had a prior engagement. So I believe looks like y'all's committee is all present.
That's right.
And I just asked if y'all could verify your member roster. If you have the agenda in front of you. Right now, as far as the members go, I have Sean as the chair and Pam and Edith as the two.
That's right. And Edith, Mary is not on this committee, right? She was originally.
Not
Yeah,
so, no.
As far as I know, Sean, I'm a member of this group. It's a work group. It isn't a committee, but as far as I know, I think we, on some level, so the bylaws say the executive committee, but I mean, that's not set in stone.
okay. Yeah, it seemed like Mary was getting emails incorrectly. I think originally a year ago or so she was on it, but had to pass. So this may have been established in the last monthly meeting, but everyone accepted their appointment, their seat, and Abel, he's still down with it. He in helping. He was hoping he would be able to attend the MLK Day event, but he was still in Miami helping his parents. So still the case on that. Rodney, remind me, is it April when it goes in front of the mayor and commission?
So when I asked Jean Spratlin in November, timeline, if we get our name submitted by February, when could they be appointed? She told me April. I'm hoping that if we get this information sent out right away, there might be a slight chance that we can get on the March agenda.
Okay.
But most likely it'll be April.
And then we're filled up at this point, right?
Yes. Should I go ahead and stop sharing this, or you want to look at it some more?
Looks good to me.
I'll just scroll down to the next page. These are our new members coming in.
Okay.
And Reddit. I just kind of pieced information from their resumes and applications and from conversations I had with them, especially on their statement of interests, because I didn't really get a clear statement of interest from the resumes or from their applications necessarily. So I kind of pieced it together the best that I could.
Looks good to me. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go ahead and stop sharing it then.
I personally don't have anything else. How about you, Marion? How about you, Edith and Rodney?
I did want to run something by you. Since I'm, the newest member, I had wondered about after our new members are official, about just sending them a welcoming email with things that I found helpful the first year, such as our social media accounts, and I would run by y'all first.
That's a great idea, Edith.
So I have sent out a congratulations email to them, and they've all responded. But I think to add to the informational side of what you mentioned, I think that's a great idea.
I have the member binder materials that I've given to members in the past. So there's quite a bit of information that could be really helpful to them. I am unable to send a large amount of documents from my work email. So maybe if I gave those to you, Edith, you could send that member binder out to them from your email.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I could create a zip file and then give it to you on a flash drive, and you could send it.
Okay.
If the rest of you are okay with that.
Sure.
If I can interject for just a second, in the exec meeting, we talked about the possibility of doing CTC specific email accounts for everybody. And if we were to do that through Google, we can have a shared Google Drive where every member, you know, Rodney, the secretary, could be the administrator of those documents and share them as read-only with the with all the members. So you could hop in that folder and just have access to everything, but not be able to make changes to them as a member.
What do you think, Rodney? Is that too much work? You know, I just saw you laughing.
No, it's a great idea. I was just thinking, oh man, one more account.
Yeah, right.
It's a great idea.
So is there an issue with like Google, you know, Google platform, you know, like is that sub like below the county's security level or anything, or
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know if anyone would have issue with that or not.
we could probably ask for forgiveness, right? You know, like,
Well, I mean, most of the members don't have a county email, so they can have whatever kind of an email. I mean, it's kind of, you know, I don't see why it would be an issue. I don't know. I have to be careful about being in the business of asking for forgiveness.
yeah.
I don't see why there would be an issue with it. I don't even know who I would ask about it for sure.
Well, what if we funneled it through Joe?
Like I said, I don't see an issue with it. I kind of wonder. I mean, my official perspective on it would be to bounce it off of the attorney's office. You know what I mean?
Okay,
And maybe Tori could do that for us. You know, she knows those folks.
that's a great idea. I like the idea of like going digital. You know, like it'd be a lot more efficient for sure.
There's an enormous amount of benefits in doing it that way. I can see that for sure.
Okay, so I guess action item, ask Tori if she can, or would that be just it would have to be a above board discussion, wouldn't it?
Well, we could ask her if the tree council could ask Tori if she'd be willing to ask the attorney's office about it. She might get a faster response than I would.
Probably so. And
she's no longer working there, but she probably still knows those people.
I think that's an agenda item, isn't it, Joe? I think you'd mentioned in the agenda to establish CTC email and stuff. So that would be a good segue, I think. That's all I have, guys. You're on mute, Joe.
There we go.
Awesome. I love that idea, and that as far as organization, that would really help out a lot to have just one stop location.
It would, definitely. Just from my perspective of trying to get documents out, it would help. It'd make all the difference.
I think at one point the CTC had tried using Dropbox, and that was just a disaster. Not everybody's email could access it, and it was just disorganized. But yeah, I think if it was all under one roof, that may make the difference. So the next one that we have, we can adjourn the interview work group.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, hey.
How's
Hey, Phil.
everybody? Good morning, afternoon. What is it? This is Sunday, right? Oh, the travails of being retired. You can't tell one day from another, especially with COVID. Uh, well, while we're maybe waiting on, well, we may have everybody here. Should we treat the TFT work group as a committee regarding these meetings? I mean, should we always meet as if we were a committee on our monthly Zooms? I guess what I'm getting at, one of the reasons for creating a work group was so that we did not need to abide by all the sunshine law regulations as far as publishing ahead of time a meeting and having a quorum and inviting the public and all that. So it doesn't matter to me. I'm just curious as to whether that's something that we should just plan ahead to have each month.
Rodney, you're muted.
Thank you, Mary. Phil, I don't think it really matters because it is a work group, but being able to meet here is a forum to be able to meet, in a socially distanced way. So it's really just an option.
Okay. Well, I like the idea perhaps of using the 10-minute or so option as a placeholder. And then if we had larger business that it would be helpful to discuss for a longer period of time, we would just need to let you know ahead of time when the agenda was set so that you could carve out more time for us. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, that would be up to Joe on some level, but I'll see what Joe thinks about that.
I think that's kind of the beauty of the work group is that if you did have a longer discussion, y'all could just set it up.
Okay, do it outside.
I think, the committee schedule's pretty well set in for this block of time.
Yeah.
So
okay. Well, I don't know that will be the case. A lot of times I feel like we as a small group and not a lot of things happening on the fly, usually we can deal with our business by email and perhaps have a Zoom meeting if we need to, but maybe we'll actually be able to meet in person again here one of these days also. One of the things that got me to thinking about it was this change with tree species and needing to make a decision fairly quickly and all. It just got me to thinking about how we needed to get together and whether we needed to do it on a regular basis or not.
And just so you know, Phil, the executive committee did vote to approve the chalk maples instead of the crepe myrtles. So it did that as a time-sensitive order of business for the tree council.
Wonderful. My intention for the TFT members that are here, my intention is to get back in touch with the folks at Moons this afternoon and see if they're still, the weather's not going to be great for the next day or two, but see if they're still on schedule for having them dug and ready to go on Wednesday. If so, I will try to make arrangements with them to get down there and get them back one way or the other. Rodney, during business hours, is it likely that I can catch somebody there to help offload things, or is that going to require a long planning horizon?
That would be great, Phil. If you just let us know what time, they can have a tractor here and a crew to help unload.
These shouldn't be nearly as big a problem as those giants that we wrestled last week or whenever. Okay, I will let you know when I know something.
Okay, thank you.
As far as business, it looks like one of the things we were supposed to do, and I believe we've already done it, is to confirm or verify our membership roster. And I have, again, I think I've stated this already, me as chair, Mary, Joe, Rodney, and Pam seems to get left off a lot when the membership list is shown on agendas and so forth. But I have not heard otherwise from her. I think she considers herself to still be a member of, of the TFT. So you can keep her on that list. That would be good. And Nina, I guess she is officially off the council right now, so is not a member, but I assume she will return when she does come back.
Okay. That sounds good. I'll make those changes.
Anybody else have anything in the few minutes that we have here?
Yeah, I guess, so we talked about the actual event planning a little bit briefly in the exec committee. And we'd like to ask if you would be comfortable as the chair of the work group, if you want to kind of direct the master of ceremonies. I think basically the gist of it, closed event. Rodney said that our commissioner, Russell, was going to read the proclamation. He's agreed to do that.
Okay, so this
Mary
is
Songster was going to invite Mariah Parker, the district commissioner for that portion of town. And she was also going to invite one of the commissioners who had kind of, I don't want to say spearheaded the Firefly Trail, but has been really involved in the Firefly. So it'll be just those three commissioners and the council.
so Russell will read the proclamation produced by the mayor's office, and then the other two would just be distinguished guests that we'd like to recognize while they're there, right?
That's correct.
Sure, I'd be glad to do that. This is still on the February 19, right?
That's correct.
Do we have somehow I inadvertently didn't write it down. If we do we have a specific time in mind already?
I don't believe that we do.
Do we say something about, I remember somebody talking about after lunch and 1 o'clock, not wanting to make it too late in the day, but I don't know if we ever pulled the trigger on that.
Yeah, that should be in our meeting minutes, which I don't have pulled up. Let's see.
I believe it's 1 o'clock. I'll double check. I'll try to verify that.
Okay, and we would use that as perhaps as the time that we would actually begin the official program, which would be the recognition of the guest and the reading of the proclamation. So we're talking about a fairly short and sweet thing. We're not, y'all haven't talked about any designs about mulching or doing anything like that in conjunction, right? I would just as soon do that at another time when, when we don't have the officials around there and all.
Yeah.
Rodney, if Gene and Greg or any of those folks would like to come, it would be nice to extend an invitation to them, particularly because of their cooperation and collaboration with us with the planning and so forth, year in and year out. Anything else? Wow. Well, thank y'all for being here.
Thank you, Phil.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not seeing anything on the minutes about a time for Arbor Day.
If I remember correctly, I did 1 o'clock is the time that sticks in my mind also.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Well, so be it then.
Let's see. Yeah, that's what I have written down too.
We all thank you. Just a quick note about as we're closing about the, I'm sure y'all have already talked about it, the work day at Rock Springs. That went great. Appreciate everybody coming out and all the participation and the mulch being provided. And we got a lot done, and it sure did look a lot better when we left from there. So we do need to look toward doing something similar to that at Broad Acres soon, because it does need the attention as well. And with that, I'm done. And I thank you. Promotions next, right?
That's right.
Okay. Well, I'll stick around for some, if not all of that.
All right. Looks like we have everybody. Troy, Jesse, yeah, great. So I feel like it's been a really long time since we've met for some reason, right? I want to start off by a couple of things that came up earlier, like that Joe mentioned, just to float an idea before I forget, because it's not on the agenda, but he brought up in the executive committee meeting that wanted to know what we all thought about everybody having a CTC email affiliated with the website or a Gmail, so that we get all these emails related to the tree council to a separate email address. What's that?
There is one. It is, and I can share the login information with everybody, but it's acctrees@athenstreecouncil.com.
Awesome. What do you think about each member having an acctreecouncil.com email address?
It would cost money, so it'd be something that would need to be approved by the entire council.
Okay.
But it can be done easily. It's just it would cost, like, I don't remember how much exactly, but it would be like a monthly fee.
For an unlimited number of emails, you think, or per email?
Probably per email.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess we could look into it, but it might not be worth it then. I like that idea of it because they get mixed in with, the rest of work emails, and
we get one for free, and that's the ACC Trees one. So, and anyone can use that. Pam has the login. You should have the login somewhere, Mary.
I got it somewhere in this book. Somewhere. And then, but Rodney was a little bit like, we're not really supposed to conduct a lot of business through email, and it may sort of look like we're trying to conduct business through email, and then Joe's comment to that was that it could be sort of flipped on the other end by saying, well, if we do get audited for some reason, we could have our emails all consolidated in one place. But anyway, not a necessity. But do you mind looking into it, Jesse? I hate all the.
Sure, yeah, I'll figure out the exact cost, and then I can report back at our next meeting.
Be great.
Everybody's there.
Is there a difference between the .orgs and the .com as far as being a paid thing, or
no?
No.
And the only reason these are paid is because it's at AthensTreeCouncil.com. It's used. It's a Gmail account, but because it's at Athens Tree Council, you have to pay for that.
I see.
Yep. My thought really on that was just like for some of us that have multiple personal and work accounts, when you start to get CTC emails going to both, it just, kind of like how we have structured at New Urban Forestry. We're able to share documents with one another. So like one of the exec committee items was that there's a lot of member documentation. It's not easily shared, with large attachments being sent one at a time. So being able to have a library that houses all of our CTC documents, and then also just you know, a dedicated account where we can send emails to one another or to the group. That's kind of where it spurred from. But yeah, I think you're right. I think the cost is really going to be the big determination on that. And you know, if it's a whole lot of money, then it's probably not a good idea. But if we can get away with kind of a minimal monthly fee that we could offset through donations that cover our operating expenses, things like that, that you know we do have coming down the pipeline in the future, then maybe it's something that we might could find useful.
Okay. And then the other thing that came up was, I love that Joe added in his email and on this agenda where to find agendas, and that there is a place on the county website where you can find all these, right? Isn't that where it was? But we should be posting these on our website as well. Would it be possible to have a page with a link of the committee agendas and the council as a whole agenda? And then I guess, what about minutes? Do we post minutes on the county website, Joe? Or?
They are. I went and looked a little while ago at the address that was given in, I guess it's in Joe's email. And I saw agendas and I saw the minutes from last December's meeting and so forth. So they are there.
Okay.
Now, I presume Rodney produces those and sends them to be posted there. It might be that it would be just as easy if he's going to be the secretary of record that continues to do that, for him to just send it to two places rather than just to the county at the same time, and then we would have it.
Well, I wouldn't mind doing it is that a hard thing to do, Jesse? No.
Fun.
What's that?
Thing to do. I wonder if it's necessary, though. You know.
Well, I guess we could just have a link to the other website saying you can find our agendas here.
Yeah, keep that for all the official business, and then have our website be more for the outreach and pictures.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good. So what if we added on, I'm trying to think what page it would be on, where we could just have a statement with a link to that address. Anyway.
I'll look around and see if I can find a place for it.
Okay, so link to county. I'll follow up with you about that. Great.
It would probably fit well on the About Us page, and then I could talk about the official site with all the agendas and county.
And the application, like the application to become a council member is there.
Right.
And I'm happy to have another work day, a massed work day with you on some of this stuff.
I really work better that way. This whole pandemic thing has made it to where I have gotten barely anything done on this website.
I know.
Well, I need the accountability.
Me too. I need to do some things. So it's good to, I'm making myself a to-do list, and my deadline is by our next meeting, as a full council meeting to report back on. So I'll get with you after that, and maybe we can do that.
Okay.
So I need to send, oh, Rodney just sent me an updated list with everybody's addresses and email addresses and everything. That's really helpful to me, and I can use that as a checklist of who I've sent the bios to, who I've gotten them from. I'm getting some mail. And that'll help me go down the checklist, and I need to do that monthly. So I'm going to start that back up and post some pictures from MLK. If anybody snapped any, shoot them to me in a text or an email. And I started a folder of photographs from our plantings too, but I didn't take a single one. I was so late. Jesse, I think you took some for New Urban. Maybe I could steal some.
Yeah, I'll send you some pictures. I have a bunch.
That's great. I think maybe I saw Lee taking some pictures too. So we're going to send the bios. We need to work on, that's another to-do task when you and I work together, is putting some of those pictures that people have submitted to us up. And I need to go through and double check who sent them, who we have that are complete, who I need to remind, and who's never gotten it yet. Okay, so that's on my to-do list before the next meeting. We keep going back and forth about the champion trees, and to have that as a link on our website. And before, Rodney was saying before, he needs to finish the countywide assessment of, kind of the overall canopy inventory, and that those were connected in some way. Do we have any update on that, or has anybody heard? Rodney's not listening in, I don't think, but I think, like y'all were just saying previously, Joe, it sounded like a lot of the county trees that we have are long gone. And so it wouldn't be we need to double check on them all. Is that right? Joe Perloff?
Pay attention, Joe. Quit sending Slack messages and pay attention.
Is that what you were talking about when you were saying that you heard of a champion tree right when we logged on, and many of them are long gone?
You're muted, Joe.
So yeah, I had a visit this morning with one supposedly was a champion Buckeye that was not there anymore. So that was disappointing.
They called you to look at it, or they called you because they thought they had one? Or
it was just a general, hey, tell us what's wrong with all our trees. And I guess a UGA botanical garden person had lived there for a long time. And so they had all these kind of unusual species of trees. They had the state champion star magnolia, which was there, which was really cool. But yeah, the Buckeye was gone.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think Rodney had kind of alluded to in some other discussions that there are candidates coming in here and there, mm-hmm. but that, yeah, we do, if we can. So there's two programs. There's the champion tree, which is the largest in the county. And then there's the landmark tree program, which is a lesser tier, but it's like any tree. There's language in the tree ordinance that talks about it, but it's basically, understory trees that are, 10 inches and larger, and then large canopy trees that are, 30 inches and larger, can be nominated, and they can be on private land. And basically what that does is if they do pass landmark tree status, then they get certain protections when it comes to future development. And they get just kind of a general notoriety in the county database. But then the champion tree is actually like upper echelon, largest in the county. So the county has a program, and then the state has a program, and I believe there's a national program as well. So champions are largest, landmarks are just notable.
And so this is kept track in, when you say the county website, do you mean the ACC? I saw something about it in the Forest Commission website, and it could be another opportunity where we just have a link to that in our website, if that's the case. So I will make a note to myself to research. Do you know
That could be.
where this information is kept?
I don't. Sean has an old spreadsheet from like 2014, and I believe that's about when the Champion Tree program went kind of defunct. So,
I think Joe, I think you have expressed an interest in helping sort of get that thing propped back up or stood up again. And I have talked to Rodney about that also. I would like and have intentions of having regular meetings with him and perhaps with the intern to sort of, there's a database, but apparently it's not in great shape right now, and it's not current. There needs to be a lot of field truthing, like checking on the Buckeye or this or that. And I'm very interested in that aspect of it. So what I think we need to do is figure out a place on the website where it will go, and perhaps that the Georgia Forestry Commission site can go now as a link, but hopefully that's going to be brought up to date in the next year or two and improved, and it will be a desirable part of the website, I think, when we have it up to date.
definitely, yeah. So the Georgia Forestry Commission is probably the state champions.
Right. That would be my guess.
The county champions, as far as I know, exists solely on a Excel spreadsheet that just kind of floats around the county.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't really have any.
So that could be a place. We could be its own.
We could, yeah.
Part of my question in all this is like, what's the point of having it on our website other than just general interest for people that are interested in trees, and how does it fit into our mission statement, and how, I can think of several ways right off the bat, but when we put that page on the website, we need to have a clear sort of statement as to why it's there, I think. So, I just wanted to kind of flesh this idea out and see what y'all think, why it's important to us. Do we maintain it? Is this going to be our job? Is, that kind of thing. Because I've been a little lost as to what our role is or has been in the past with that program. I kind of hear it loosely, but I don't really have a good idea. So maybe I need to reach out to Sean too and see.
Yeah, I think
Sorry.
a couple places to start would be, I think is it 817 of the ordinance, community tree management defines a landmark tree, a champion tree, and discusses their criteria for those.
Okay.
And I think the next step would be coordinating with Rodney. Granted, he doesn't have a whole lot of time for this, but to determine mostly jurisdiction of, and I think if it's a county resource, we can certainly shed light to that. But if it's something that the council can run with, I think we'd probably be more effective in doing, I would say probably the champion tree, because there's fewer of them.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
But if we were to take on landmark trees, we'd be looking in the thousands and thousands and thousands of trees.
So we could also put out a call on the website, like if you think you may have a champion.
Mm-hmm.
Send us
I think one of the things that's happened in the past, and this actually preceded my arrival on the council, but I think different council members all along have had pet projects and pet things that they were interested in, and there were several people, I gather, who were very interested in the Champion Trees program and pretty much managed that. Went out and did the field checking and the measurements and all, and worked up the nominations for them, that sort of thing. So how valuable that is as far as a county resource. It's a sexy thing for some people, but I don't know how valuable it is. But the landmark trees, they do have, as you were saying, Joe, I think they have special status in that
Yeah,
they are
protection.
afforded some protections on private land that are similar to what trees on rights of way and public property are afforded as far as development and so forth. So that's something that I see Rodney, it being a county program that's important to the county, but it's also important to us, and the county doesn't have the manpower uh, to maintain it the way it needs to be. And so that's where we would come in, would just be in a partnership sort of situation, I think.
Well, maybe as a practice and to see how involved we can and care to be, starting with the championship trees because they're fewer, just to kind of see if we can start somewhere. It does, because it is alluring in some way, it does help bring public, focus to the fact that we care about trees and value big trees, right? And so maybe we can, it seems like we would need an arborist to be on, maybe we could create a work group for this. I don't know. Where that's sort of a subset of this committee, and we could bring in maybe one of our new members. What was that new member's name that was arborist? Patrick?
Patrick's an arborist, yeah.
Somebody that would actually be willing to go out in the field periodically and check on calls that come in. And so maybe I'll make a note to make it a part of our discussion with the overall council that we come up with a work group just for championship trees, possibly landmark trees in the future. And then kind of with that within us, this work group can come up with a statement on that web page for that particular page and what our goals are with it.
Putting a call out would be definitely something to do on social media.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and if we ever run any other, ads, but that's an easy thing to do. But again, before we do that, we want to be sort of prepared to field those questions and calls.
Rodney's not with us right now, but he definitely needs to be pulled into the conversation about that, because he has some definite ideas, and he has an intern that he is using to some extent on the landmark program, I think, or trying to. So we want to work with him primarily on this.
Okay. Well, Joe, I'll send you a sort of a statement in hopes to bring it up for an agenda item for the next meeting. But do y'all think a work group is needed or would be helpful? Okay.
I think so.
All right.
My thought is that it may be, but that it might be premature now to try to. I would really like to have some conversation with Rodney. Obviously, even if he is in charge of either or both of these programs at the county level, then even if he has people helping him or doing his bidding, it is one more thing on his schedule and his agenda to deal with. So I would be sensitive to how he would like to proceed with it. So
definitely, I think
I would just push that work group forward as a possibility for
definitely. Okay. And part of the reason why this is starred on in my notes is because of an interesting conversation that we've had previously, kind of that I thought it, was sort of coming from Rodney, that he was interested in bringing it up.
Yeah.
Okay. And if anybody ever has any people that they would like to email the fundraising letter to, I'd like to keep that ball rolling. I know I was trying to get some out before the end of the year in case people wanted to get in some more donations before the end of the year for tax purposes, but I didn't raise quite as much money in that list, my first list of people to send it to, as I'd hoped, but we did get a few $100s in off of that, so that's good. Some things I wanted to explore are the possibility of creating a sustainable membership, like encouraging people and sending them a reminder that they would be giving that amount every year with some sort of automated prompt or a monthly donation. And but I guess, you know, the first step is just to continue to reach out to people. So if anybody has any ideas of people they'd like to send that to, that would be good. And I don't know if Sean or any other New Urban members had clients they thought could think of that might be interested in donating. It's a weird thing. I hate doing it. You know, I hate people hearing from me thinking Mary wants money for something, but a lot of people gave $100, so that's great. I have started addressing envelopes during the meeting here to send these stickers, so everybody's going to get a sticker. And Jesse, I remember Pam asking about our nonprofit status on the website. Do we need to, or maybe not, maybe it didn't have anything to do with the website. What was that?
She didn't mention anything to me about the website. I don't know.
We are a nonprofit that's stated and settled and right.
Yes. I don't know that is on the website.
Okay. And I don't remember why that came up, but it was in my notes as something to investigate and make sure that our nonprofit status was updated. And I did not put anything about us being a nonprofit in my fundraising letter, so I thought I would amend that to state it. Okay, so if you think that's...
It seems to me that status has to periodically be updated or renewed, and I know that Pam in the past has been responsible for doing that. I had a conversation with her at one point about whether or not we were obligated to pay sales tax when we made purchases, and that, of course, is not the case. We are still pay sales tax, but for those donations, as long as they don't receive something of a monetary value in return for their donation, then we are.
Well, maybe I have this incorrect, and I was supposed to be asking Pam if she had updated it, but I do think we need to state that on the donation page of, I think it's on there. On the donation page of the website. You can check that.
What if we give them a tree, or we give them a print or something? Do we have to give them some statement of what the monetary value of that is? That's tacky.
Yeah.
Especially when it's $5.
Yeah. We might.
We are listed as a nonprofit on the donation page.
Great. Okay. All right. I had that question. I could have looked at that myself. And then we needed to add, I'm going to put this on you, onto the donations page of the website, that in order to remain an anonymous donor, they need to make a note of that in the PayPal comments.
Okay.
Or on their check. Or in an email.
Just let us know.
Just let us know, because we did talk about listing donors. And so I will put an MLK post on social media and new bios. And then we also have a Arbor Day event coming up, and I'm not going to put anything on the Arbor Day event until after the fact. Same way with MLK, because of COVID, we don't want people to show up, although I doubt they would, but need to spread those out a little bit. Also, does anybody have any other promotional ideas, any other social media posts. Large trees on your property are always good ones. If you see anything,
Did we ever post about the moon tree article that was in the paper last week?
Well, I had posted it like several months ago,
Oh, okay.
So I thought about it, but I thought, gosh, I should, and I posted something. There was a fairly recent article about the tree that owns itself.
Yeah.
Too, and I put that one up. It certainly wouldn't hurt to put another one about the moon tree up. Yeah, I don't know how to find out more interesting stories about trees around town. Think about the president's ginkgo, or, it's kind of an iconic thing. But
Which one is the president's ginkgo?
just the president's, the giant ginkgo on Prince in front of the president's house just stands out. And I see more social media posts when that thing is in color, I know that people love it. I don't know how old it is. Do
any posts about MLK?
I haven't done that yet. No, that's what I was saying. That's gonna happen today. And we'll get some good pictures from the Firefly Trail and the Arbor Day celebration there. But it would be good if we could get some field shots of people measuring future champions, or anything like that. Yeah, but we need to introduce our new members.
That'd be a good post. Yeah. I'm going to sign the paperwork today to get them in.
Do we have 3?
3 new members. We got Holly Campbell, Ernie Cox, and Patrick. I don't have Patrick's last name.
Perry, I believe.
Patrick Perry.
Is that right?
Okay. Great. All right. Well, Jesse, let's try to get together and tour. Anybody, if anybody does, oh man, are we allowed to do that? I think we have to talk about that.
It's weird. When we used to meet in person, we never had to open it up to the public. But now that we meet online, if we have work sessions, we have to open it up to the public. I'm really confused about the whole thing. But
me too. I don't think that we ever stated. It was more like after the fact, when we submitted our minutes from those meetings, we would say, the promotions committee met on da 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 da, and these were the people that were there, and this is what we talked about. But it was never, announced before, But,
yeah.
And so, how about the timeline on the website? Have we done anything with that? Share the website. We have a little time. Can you share the website with us?
Yeah. Hang on.
Look at the.
Okay, you guys see it? Okay, so this is kind of where the meat of everything is, where our mission statement is, and this is kind of the area where I'd like to talk about the projects, like upcoming projects and ongoing, like the Trees for Tomorrow would be a good thing to go here, or like annual things that we do, like the Arbor Day or MLK Day. And then this is really where I thought it would be more of like past projects, like things that, like a list of accomplishments almost.
Yeah. Would we insert that table that Tori worked on into this
Yes,
page?
that's where this would go.
Uh-huh. And would you have a link to like a Google Sheet, or would you have an actual, the table would just be there? What do you think?
I don't know. I've never inserted a table, so I think I can do that, but I would have to kind of play with it. So I'm not sure. It might have to be a link.
Yeah.
We can also download the Google Sheet as a PDF and it'll capture it that way. I don't know if that would be helpful. And that's easy to do if we have to update the Google Sheet at any time and just download a new PDF.
I might have to do it that way because I don't think Squarespace supports a table format, but I don't have that table that I am aware of. Tori, could you resend that to me?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And then got Joe and his tree.
Yay.
Franklin tree, is that right?
Yeah.
Linnea, yes.
Got all our. I guess this is not everybody because I don't see Mary, or my picture's not on here.
Okay. And
So
then
put more of
would
those
you
on.
be able to click that picture, like if you of the Sean? Oh. And I see it says his name there, so.
Yeah, in order to have like a full bio, I'm gonna need to change this from a slideshow like it is currently and do more of like a grid.
And then you click the picture and it opens a box that tells you about that person. Is that how that would work?
Yeah. And
I
then
like the slideshow. That's cool though.
yeah, I liked the slideshow. Unfortunately, it just does. You can only include about this much text on each slide, so I couldn't include the entire bio for each person. And then
Well, maybe we don't need a whole, well, I don't know. I don't know. What do y'all think? We could just, I was thinking that could just be a social media post instead of a website thing.
clearly, I have more work to do on this contact us page. However, I did recently update this educational outreach and resources with some information that Lee provided me. She included this language. So she said that there's going to be more content here soon from the educational committee. So that's exciting. And then we have the donate button here at the top with our different donate levels, and these take you directly to PayPal. And then as you see here.
Yeah. And so that just needs to have that little bit about to remain anonymous. Please notify.
Yes. I have a note to add that.
Mm-hmm.
That's no problem. So the bones of it are here. I just need to add some of the content that I'm missing.
What about work we've done, like the planning committee, or what is that committee called? Policy.
That I don't have any information from. So, you know, I can find a place to put it, perhaps in the, when you go to like here, I can always add another tab for policy, or I could include it in education.
I think it would be nice to have a separate page for policy. Maybe we could reach out. Who's the chair of policy right now?
Mary Songster, I believe.
Yep, she just put in the chat that it's her.
Okay. So as they meet and kind of flesh out, maybe they could put, hey, Mary, you could put it on a agenda item to really come up with some sort of a statement on how you would like to be presented on the website, which is a good way to kind of consolidate a mission statement about what we do. I mean, we should have a promotions page probably too, with social media links.
Yes, I do need to put the social media links. That's an easy fix and
Yeah.
something that should have already been done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Well, I feel better directed there about specifically what some things we could be doing. And just everybody, don't forget to ask people for money or fundraise, or we haven't done much in the way of, I haven't done anything in the way of asking support from businesses. And we haven't gone any deeper in talking about what they might get in return. We still don't have any t-shirts. And I think with COVID and us not having any real public events where we may sell t-shirts, that was kind of our main thinking about where we could share a company's logo that wanted to support us. But we've got work to do on the website and promotions before we get to that point. But anybody that wants to continue to think about ways to reach out to businesses and where we could show their logo. There's another opportunity for that on the website, and certainly with social media blasts. Yeah, Phil.
Speaking of businesses, I don't think we ought to do it in the near future because it smacks of quid pro quo maybe, but Bowringer, because of their interest in the trees on their site and so forth, they might be a good one not only to hit up for a contribution, maybe a sustaining contribution to the CTC, but also a feature article showing some of their campus and some of the work that's been done on their trees and that sort of thing, perhaps as well. Just an out there in the community, here's what's being done for trees kind of a thing as a social media.
One thing I didn't show on the site is there is a news section. We don't currently have anything on the news section just because I didn't want to list our work events. I don't want people to show up, but that would be a good place to kind of highlight like Bowringer. We could also put the policy information there as like here's what the CTC is doing, in terms of rewriting the policy for Athens, and just do like a article about it, like a blog post.
I'll put a social media post up about the awards, that we decided on, Bowringer and the guy over at Broad Acres. I think but that would also be another newsworthy opportunity to say when we award Silas with his award, we should certainly put that on there. I think somebody that's kind of messing around with our website would think that was cool to see.
Yeah.
So for policy stuff, Jesse, or you guys might link to planning, and you could talk about if there's a link to planning about like for historic preservation, neighborhoods often post when something's going to be up for discussion in the historic preservation. Well, the planning commission would have the same thing. If there's something that's going to be discussed about trees and development, we could just link to that through planning.
Yep.
They really are the policy, housing the policy.
Right.
Our current influences.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think this ties in really well to what I was thinking about in terms of when Joe asked about some yearly goals. I would like to see us by the end of the year, with the website sort of complete.
I don't want it sort of complete. My goal for this year is to have that website done and easy for people to send me an article to post on news and just publish it, and like everything's flushed out. That's absolutely my number one
Not to
goal.
muddy the waters, because you're clearly wrapping it up, but, and I had wanted to ask this, like, when we were all saying, hey, post this article, like, do we officially, like, you know, in other organizations I'm in, it is someone's full-time task to sort of be the media, to keep the
Yeah.
media updated. So is that you guys?
Yes.
Okay.
And I tend to post things on Facebook and Instagram, and Jesse's been sort of taking over the website with a lot of support with Tori, I'm doing some digging for some historical stuff, and Joe's been helpful too about some research we've done with another page we were thinking about putting up with the eye tree situation. That's kind of, I don't think it's quite a priority because we have other things that we need to be blasting out there, and it was going to cost money, so that was like kind of got put to the back burner. But
Yeah, the iTree kind of fizzled out.
yeah,
You know, I think the way we left it was, we can't give you the code, but you can certainly screenshot it and then put a link on your page.
oh,
Yeah,
right, okay, that's interesting.
kind of proprietary.
Uh-huh.
I think they were under the impression that we would be, I don't know, assisting them somehow in order to give permission to have the code. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they said you could certainly screenshot our website and link to it, and that's probably the best solution.
Yeah, that could be done. For sure. All right, I have a note here. Just when we start thinking about, if everybody wants to start thinking about money, asking for donations from corporate sponsors, I really like thinking about carbon footprint. And if a company, you know, I think it's a good way to approach a company. It's not so much how anything I use to approach individuals, but I think I could draft another letter for corporations that may have a little bit more about that. Like UPS is awesome. You know, they have a heavy carbon footprint. Amazon, the company my husband works for, TSAV, they've got guys on the road all the time. So, you know, it's a good plug for people that travel.
One thing when people, I'm working with Dan Everett and 100%, and we're trying to develop a carbon offset community tool, which hopefully will be housed in the Office of Sustainability, but we're working on that. But the companies, they like a metric. So you have to develop a metric, you know, that you don't get locked into planting only. Because the metrics for the offset, you know, they need some kind of like measurement for their corporation to be able to give the money. And so it's totally possible. And I can ask Dan, I mean, we can talk about trying to figure out that metric. That's what we've been working on. It's very hard for me. It's much easier for Dan. But they in the abstract of a carbon offset or doing the good thing, they really won't play. But if you have a metric where you can say you do this and it's this much in this community, then they'll pay.
And that's going to be so for the offices, are you talking about that's like a tax that they're going to have to pay?
No, I'm saying like what we're trying to develop is like the one I always use as an example is Ithaca, the Finger Lakes carbon offset, the community of Ithaca in New York. They have this, like, it's a community carbon offset tool. So, and the group actually distributes the carbon offsets, and they have like these set things, like it can be plantings, it can be weatherization for low income. And so, but what you do is you plug in, like, I went to Mexico on vacation. This is how much fuel it used. Or if you're a business, you know, I ran 4 trucks for 6 months, you know, however many miles. And then it'll tell you that's this much money to offset that much carbon use. And basically you give it to the Ithaca group, and they show you how they distribute it. They don't guarantee you like what exactly it goes to. It's going to go to something that's going to be an equitable offset. but they have a calculator that tells you how much money it is to offset that carbon, and then they show you the programs that they're putting it towards to offset the carbon, and they have metrics to measure it. So if it's weatherization, they show how much energy was saved, so carbon wasn't used by weatherizing this home or this library. If it's plantings, they
So
show
it's a
how much
suggestion
carbon
for a
is
donation. Yeah. It's not a
yeah,
mandatory
it's
thing.
saying like if you're going to carbon offset and you want to do it in this community, this is how much that carbon offset is, and this is where you can do it in the community. And
Well, if we could get,
definitely part of that.
so we could put a link to your thing at the Office of Sustainability on our website as sort of a suggestive
Absolutely.
tool.
Yeah, we would definitely, I mean, we want to ask y'all like to be a link, but it is hard to guarantee, like saying that your $50 is offset by trees, like it's we're working on that.
Yeah, it's hard to quantify.
It is.
Cool. That's really cool. That's exciting. I have gone down my list. I think that's it. I think it's really valuable to kind of take a tour through the website, and maybe next time I'll think to bring up our Facebook page and share that. Maybe that's a good idea in every committee member meeting that we do that, and we kind of can show off posts we've done over the month and hold me accountable for what I'm blasting to the community. You'll
Along
notice
those
that they'll all be the day before, you know, whatever it takes.
Along those lines, I would like to say thank you to you and to Jesse and Tori and whoever has been doing it. The website looks great. I know there's more work to be done on it, but it really looks good. And I'm always excited to see an article come out on Facebook. So
Yeah,
thank you.
I don't know. I mean, sometimes there's only like 10 people that I feel like see it, but I think that'll grow. I don't know how to make that, you know, happen.
Sometimes I don't know either. If we share it with our friends, I don't know what else we can do. But
I know.
That is the best way to drum up new interest, is to have everybody share it on their personal pages.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, thank you. It's great.
Sure thing. Thanks to y'all. Okay. All right. I guess next committee's up, huh?
Thanks, Mary. This is preparing you for your future role as president.
Oh, me? Oh,
Yeah.
I was looking at Mary Songster. Thank you.
You're next in line.
Oh, yeah.
You did a fantastic job leading this meeting. You'll do fine as president.
You're a natural.
Joe, I love the agenda layout and your emails already. I feel like it's highly organized, and it's great. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank y'all.
Thanks.
Conservation stewards.
Hey, Mary.
Haley.
Turn up my volume here. Rodney, are you still on the policy committee?
Yes, I am, as far as I know.
Oh, cool. Okay, I took you off. We've been circulating emails around, and I took you off the list. My bad. So you kind of missed the latest loop.
It's not a very big loop. You'll catch up. Not that much happened.
Hi, Joe.
Joe.
I like seeing all your dogs, Mary.
I cannot believe that whenever I'm muted, they're barking their full heads off, and so I can't believe that they stop when
Of
I unmute
course.
there. So I have they're spoiled, very spoiled.
As well they should be.
Yes, that's what they think.
It's
Too.
usually a cat walking back and forth in front of somebody's monitor.
Well, they're I'm doing this with you guys. They're like, why are we not involved and are treats? I'm trying to make them better, which involves a lot of treating, but I think I'm just going to make them fat. So
Yeah, I'm stuck in that loop too. for myself as well as my dog. You want to start or you want to wait on Sean?
I think, let's see, excuse me, I think we can start. The first part, actually, the verify committee member roster. I assume we just start by, so I'm on it and I'm the chair for this next year. And then that's all, for me, it's like for the roster, as far as I know, now we know Rodney's still with us, Sean, Lee, Joe, Joseph. Is that everybody that you guys know? Okay. Writing that down. All right. So for number 2, the language amendments tree ordinance, I want to back up, and Rodney, we had some emails back and forth between Joseph and Lee, and in the beginning of being on the policy committee, talking about pivoting from Russell's idea of using the tree ordinance as a way to manage private trees towards looking at using planning to work more on public trees, not necessarily trying to manage private trees. But what happened was, after talking to all kinds of people, it got split, in that I realized that the process of trying to get a waiver for trees, if you're doing a development or if you're doing a personal home build, that there, part of that process, there had never been any way to remediate the loss. And we have in the tree ordinance, there are specifications for like replacement and the kind of caliber and what that cost. And it seemed like there was a need to capture that fee for when a waiver was provided. And in talking with Mark and with Bruce down at planning, and also with Andrew Saunders, when you get a waiver, there's not tons of them. It's many levels, like a lot of planning things. It can be staff level approval, or it can be the planning commission. And when we were first starting talking about tree bank and looking at the tree banks, there's actually not any really good ones out there. I think, Rodney, you were well aware that there hasn't been very many. I don't think there's a large amount of successful tree bank things. They had problems. And one of the places they had problems was in collecting these fees, or who made the decision, like if it's at a staff level, it got to be where it got a little murky in giving the permission and allowing it. And so one way to avoid that is to not have the fee for the waiver be associated with staff level permission, but only with the planning commission. And so that also does another good thing, in that the planning commission, when they allow the waiver, it's typically for a larger development or a larger rehab. And so it would actually be a more substantial fee associated with the waiver, and it would just be part of the process. If you get the waiver, and the planning commission is also a lot more daylight, a lot less subjectivity. And so that would make it be that the fee is more fair, because making the fee fair, of course, is very important, making it fair across all of that And so that's where I ended up with, in my last conversation with Mark about making it a text amendment in the tree ordinance. And like the week that he left, that commission meeting before, they just sent through a whole bunch of housekeeping text amendments to the tree ordinance. And so they've just done sort of a round of cleaning up the language. And so we have to get in on it again, and without Mark, so I'm gonna have to court the new guy. And I don't know, Joseph, you may know, or Rodney, you may know, I don't know that he's really a tree guy like Mark was, but we'll find out on that. So that's something I hope we can work on this year. I think it'll be worthwhile. It's just really a cleaning up and capturing a fee. The fee looks like it's about 8 to 15 waivers a year that are given at the commission level, and the fees would range from a couple $100,000 to a couple $1,000. So something like this would capture, somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,000 to $10,000 a year in fees, potentially in the beginning, depending on how it's developed. And that money, as I've learned in talking to people, we can't. It seems like for the attorney's office, it's a problem if we specifically earmark it. So it would have to go into general funds. We probably can apply language that says that it has to go to plantings, but we can't say which, we can't take it for ourselves, which is fair. But then once it's in there, we can ask for it. So like if later we have this thing we want to do and that money is in the general funds, we can say, hey, we need $3,000 for, so it gives us an avenue to ask for money from that revenue source, but we can't just have it, is my understanding. And you guys may have more experience with that or know better on that. Any questions?
I'll just throw out a couple of thoughts here. I do like the idea of capturing some fee for not conserving trees and asking for a waiver. Currently looking at our ordinance, I don't really think it incentivizes developers to save trees and conserve trees. And by having some kind of a fee, I think it would make developers think twice about taking out trees, right? And then if they feel like they need to take out trees for their development to work, that Athens will be able to replant, and be able to put these in public places. Because oftentimes when, projects I've worked where developers are asking for a waiver on conserved canopy, with all their building footprints and their parking and everything, they really can't even on that same site come back and plant trees to replace the canopy that was removed. So it seems like it makes sense to me that it would go to other places throughout the county. So yeah, I'm in favor of this. I think there are, like you mentioned, a lot of complexities here on and how do we do this equitably, and I think it's going to take a little time to sort it out. I working on these rezones, these plan developments. I mean, I'd say 75% of the time there is a waiver from conserved tree canopy, and it's just hard, like, to meet some of those requirements for developers. You may have only a few trees that you really think are worth saving, and they're right in the middle of the site on the most buildable area. And then you could check the box by saving some really unhealthy trees on the outside. And so I don't know, it's just always hard working with with a living organism like the trees and conserving. So I'm for flexibility, and I think that, but we still need to, I think we still need to find a way to incentivize conserving trees, and if people don't, make sure that there's some repayment.
and taking out a 40-inch oak tree and replacing it with a 2-inch oak tree just doesn't seem, I mean, that for anybody, it just doesn't seem apples to apples.
So I think that will be a part of our job, is that it's not an apples to apples, like it's not a replacement fee necessarily. I think in a concept of an urban canopy, we're going to always be planting, we're always going to be adding back that 2-inch tree. But what it is recognizing the loss. And so like that it's a greater loss than just the continued, growth of a replacement of the canopy. So, and that loss needs to be accounted for somehow. And I agree. I think within the community, we can find a space. It doesn't have to necessarily be that build, because in an urban canopy, that's going to be a moving target as to where is going to be the healthiest, growth. But we need to, it's important to keep on the growth, and for me, that's what I hope, is that it would, allow us to keep strengthening where we need to strengthen the urban canopy, which is a little bit of a moving target all the time. And so hopefully it would just be a piece of helping with that. It's, just one more piece.
So in general, this seems like a pretty good idea, a way to retrieve some loss. I really appreciate what Joe's saying about the incentivizing the keeping of trees. One of the pitfalls of this approach, I think, could be that wealthy developers may be able to just sort of buy their way out of requirements. And so as far as a fee goes, it seems to me that an approach that would take into account the DBH of the trees that they are asking to be able to remove be factored in. There's ways to do that using trunk formula method formulas, which can really assign a value to the tree. It isn't perfect, but it could be done in a way that would at least consider that the size of the trees being lost, and would really create an incentive to keep the larger, more valuable trees, which is what we really want in our urban forest. So, for example, a mature black oak, a 16-inch black oak could easily be worth $8,500. That would be under ideal conditions, perhaps, but if you bump the numbers down by, moving the formulas into to be more of an average, that may go down somewhat. I don't know what it would come out, what it would pencil out to, but maybe it'd be 4,500 or 3,500 or something like that for a tree, and it would be consistent. So this approach could consider the size of the trees. It could assign a monetary value to those trees, and it could provide an incentive to not only retrieve value, but retrieve value specifically for the trees that are being removed.
I like that. And those standards already exist in in our tree policy at planning, don't they? They already have measurements of replacement value.
No, I actually have an Excel spreadsheet calculator that can do this, but what I'm talking about is the 9th edition of the Council of Tree and Landscape Appraisers trunk formula method for appraising trees. Now, when it comes to tree appraisal, every single tree is different and will be valued differently. And the 10th edition of the Council of Tree and Landscape Appraisers tree appraisal really is more prescriptive, where it gives the arborists much more say-so and how they evaluate the trees. So that approach in the newest versions of tree appraisal becomes much more up to the specific professional performing the appraisal. But if we fell back to the trunk formula method as a guideline for assigning fees, I think it could be pretty equitable.
I like that idea. And, you know, we will certainly work on the language, including that as the standard, I think is a really good idea. And back to like Joe, your concern about, you know, being a pay instead of plant, you know, that if you are a developer. So I don't think this will end up being that, because what we're talking about capturing is people that will already get a waiver. And that's one reason why I take it out of staff approval, and I'm talking about only, at least initially, inserting it. I mean, maybe eventually if it works, we can bring it down to staff if we have a way to make sure that it can all be, you know, equitable. But things that go through the planning commission, you know, it's a much broader scope of scrutiny. And it's not like there's just one person you have to convince, you know, and they're using the standards that the community has set. So I think that will help us have it not be something that looks like to a developer that if you pay, you don't have to do this. That our concern isn't to get money for the trees. The trees are the concern. This will also, like you said, incentivize them. But there will be more moving forward as we become more dense, which is definitely our destiny. Issues where the removal of the good trees are going to be in the middle of the lot, you know, and they're going to take them down. So some way to acknowledge that transference, you know, where we've made this decision as a community, we're going to let this building be built, all the costs that are associated with that. And so one of them is that the value of the trees has to be maintained somewhere in the community. And so I think using that metric would be excellent. Be a good starting point.
I'm not familiar with the whole planning process. Can you just give me a real short explanation of what's the difference? Why do some go to the planning commission level and some stay at the staff level?
It's typically scale, and Joseph might be able to talk more to that, in that if it's your house, like if you're doing an addition on your house and it depends on how much of the land you're going to disturb, how much of the existing trees you're going to disturb. If you're going to add a back addition and you take out 3 trees, that can be to the staff level. But if you're the mark and you're going to build over there down by the river, that has to be, and you're going to ask for permission to have a waiver because you need it for parking spaces, or that's where the building goes. The scale of it typically is the driver for the planning commission to have to weigh in. Is that true, Joseph? I mean, that's my understanding of it.
Yeah, it usually ends up being large scale developments that go before planning commission, but they're going to be
sometimes it's infill.
Yeah, and these are projects that go before the planning commission. These are public process where they're seeking either a special use on a parcel that they currently can't get by right. They're seeking a rezone, maybe to go, you know, from a low density residential to a high density residential. And then with that is also planned development. So that's changing the zoning of the land plus having certain waivers from that zoning. And so those are the kind of projects that go before the planning commission and then ultimately the mayor commission.
So like the corner, the school, the Catholic school on the corner of Prince and Pulaski, like that's a planned development, a PD. And they had to go before the planning commission to get permission to do something a little bit different on the property, which did involve taking out a good number of trees. And so they weigh it. And another one is the Varsity property. They amassed a bunch of properties together, the Dairy Queen, the Varsity private properties behind there, and there's some massive trees like on those properties. And so they haven't gone through the process yet, but they will probably want to go through a planned development process where they're guaranteed they can build what they want. And then that's the point where the planning commission says, we'll let you build this if you do this. And that's where we ask for things like you have to pay for trees somewhere else, or you have to plant this much, or, you know, the parking has to be this, or a lot of it's like stream buffer, water issues, you know, so runoff. And so it's
How do
something
people
that
get on the planning commission? Are they appointed
Yep.
by who? Mayor and commission? Okay.
And it's not a board where it's a variety of people that are on the board. You're not necessarily an architect or an engineer or a builder. It's a citizen board like any other. So interest is really and time is really the main issue.
Okay.
They are some long
Thank you.
meetings, though. Those meetings are long. I've sit through a few of those. That's some long meetings.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't understand local government very well. Thank you.
I was really happy to hear that our text amendment changes finally came through. We submitted
Yes.
those a year ago. They finally went through.
That even for like what the small amendment I'm talking about, this, I think it'll take us a year just to craft language that we can approach them to see if they'll accept. So I think it would take us all year. But I think we can do it. And that.
The way I understand what you're proposing is that it's developers that are going to get a waiver anyway. And like Joe says, it's most large projects are going to get a waiver anyway. Is there, I just don't understand the whole process well enough to know, are we creating an incentive, as Joe says, for people just to buy their way out of this? Or are we just capturing money from what would be happening anyway?
That's my interest, is only in making sure that we pick up this piece that we're just giving away for free right now.
Okay.
And so there are always waivers. I'm not talking about increasing the number of waivers. I have no interest in that. And I think actually setting a guideline like Rodney's laid out, where you explain what that's going to be, like what that cost equation is, I think that will actually incentivize people to consider saving as much as they can. And you know, right now they look at it and they're like, it's impossible. And sometimes that's true. And I think actually our planning commission overall does a pretty good job of assessing that, you know, and when they make a waiver, I think it's genuinely, it's you know, there's sometimes it can be a little egregious, but in general, they are giving a waiver, and it is true that the build can't proceed without the waiver, you know. And so,
is there any? Do they have to give anything in exchange for a waiver right now, or they just get a waiver?
No, and so when I was looking into it, when I realized that, I was like, oh well. I mean, when you have other things that you get permission to, or when you get a waiver for other things, you often will pay a fee. To get that. That's just part of the waiver.
You should.
You just haven't been collecting it, and no one's asked, and it hasn't been part of the process, to be honest. So they've been working on discouraging waivers, but there's always some.
Mary, have you had a chance to talk with anyone from the Planning Commission about this?
Yeah, I talked to Matt Hall about it. He's on the Planning Commission. And so he was basically gung-ho. And I talked to Ovita Thornton as a commissioner, talking about like, would she champion, like, is this, you know, and Ovita's like, I don't even know anything about this. And so it was a good learning curve for both of us, actually. And so, but Matt seemed to think that it was something that could be incorporated. And he's, you know, he didn't seem to think it was too off book. But he did also say, like, you know, we're just about through, you know, we're through this cycle of updating, basically. And then they sent it and it all voted. He's the only person I've talked to on the Planning Commission, but Matt he was favorable of the idea.
So, Rodney, do you know who Athens is looking at for a new arborist? Is that a position they're looking for? Or, I know in the interim they're kind of filling in, different planners are just reviewing the tree management plans.
That's kind of $1 million question, Joe. I've been asked about a couple things, you know, just an advisor on some projects and some issues that have come up. I was asked to speak about one of the waivers, one of the Planning Commission waiver requests. It takes a while. I think on my position, it was first advertised in January, and I was officially hired in August. So there is a process, and there's a lot of variables, you know, and so, you know, arborists is a pretty specialized field, and planting arborists even much more so, right? There's only so many of those folks out there, but there are a lot of programs and a lot of great new students coming into the market. So they'll do a national search, and I'm sure they'll find someone who will do a good job.
Sounds good. So moving on to my split, where I ended up with this idea that we should capture this fee that we've been just letting go and trying to figure out a way to do that with equity to help move forward with an idea of canopy preservation, at least the urban canopy. And it then morphed into, we were looking at the tree banks and trying to find that. And the tree banks weren't what I was thinking. I was actually thinking of like a literal tree bank. And then I have learned, and Rodney's helped me with this too, it's like the term tree bank is toxic in government. That is a toxic phrase to use. And so I'm going to try to stop using that toxic phrase. And currently I've adopted planting resource. And my learning curve has been high on this end of it, but so as a planting resource, my initial goal is that I feel like it would increase resiliency within the community as far as our capabilities of planting and maintenance. And then if we have this resource, my hope is that it would be money we don't have to spend on that. And again, when you get back to budgeting, it's not like we get to just take that money and use it how we want, but monies could be redistributed for management. And so part of having a planting resource is to free up some monies for more management issues. And so we don't have to, blow so much of the budget on the plants themselves. And I say planting resource because I'd love it to be like a shared project between the Office of Sustainability, landscaping, CTC, and then central services. These three groups within the community, I think we all work on sort of the similar portions of the ecology of town, and we work together and should be working together more. And I've also learned that to allow everyone to have access to it, that the DOT would just eat it all up, and we wouldn't have any resource to use for any other department if we let everybody use it. They would just, in my original vision, it was some fair share thing where if you took some of the planning resource, you'd put money into it, or you would put some back. And it's been explained to me that no, if there's free trees out there, people just take them, and the first one to them gets them. So trying to narrow who initially gets to use a small resource that we develop. And like initially, of course, just thinking trees, but in thinking about the whole ecology, it could, if it's successful, if we can show that it's a valuable resource to have, it could also be shrubbery or other plantings that would help with, again, like the whole ecology, understory stuff, to make sure that the whole system is thriving. And of course, that makes the trees thrive as well. And so I think that it would be something, oh gosh, I had those numbers. So I had asked landscaping, like how much in a normal year do you plant? And in a regular year that isn't COVID, of course, they pay about $8,000 to $10,000 to buy planting materials. And so that's just one department. And Office of Sustainability, I think currently Mike has been more purchasing things than buying planting resources. He's been buying actual land with trees on it. So he hasn't, I don't know, but he will need to buy materials. That group will need to buy materials. And so if we have this resource and we can get a seed money from it. And so maybe we can ask for seed money because there's more money from a fee that we garnered that has to go to plantings, but we may not be able to, but we maybe just ask for it. And that's where asking the commissioners, like, would you be willing to do this? Then we can ask from the general fund or capital fund, but like, I forgot who is in charge, Rodney. You'll have to let me know. The woman I emailed about the planting budget is over there in landscaping.
Yeah, I honestly, Mary, I have a lot of apprehensions about this idea for several different reasons. I can just say right now, landscape management is not budgeted for this in any way. To produce basically to set up a nursery production, and that's what we're really talking about here, requires there's quite a bit of steps. There's a process, and that has to be managed by somebody, and it also has to be tended to by somebody. Plant materials are the cheapest part of planting trees by far. So my thoughts, and tree mortality is one of the bigger issues, keeping those trees watered and making sure they they're able to become established. And once again, that requires manpower and management.
I have thought of that.
And then the biggest cost really of planting a tree. So, watering, there's a cost to that, but it's not as much as the actual planting, because that involves equipment and labor hours to do that. There's also a planning component involved in that, and the planning component depending on where it is, can be pretty extensive and costly. So it's much easier said than actually done.
I
And
do not disagree with that.
Bare root trees are cheap. You can buy bare root trees by the hundreds for cheap, way cheaper than you can produce them. And so I just can't help but wonder if, buying trees by the folks who produce them by the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands would make more sense than trying to set up a small scale operation that has no budget or personnel or administrators to tend to it.
So all of those things would be addressed, and I don't have any intention of like dumping this on or thinking that it's something just landscape can do. I've been trying to think of, but I do think that landscape has the physical space, like up there behind the building. They've got that whatever that failed development was. It's already stubbed in for water. Big
Well,
space with the road.
There's some issues with that. There's some liability issues if you have people other than ACC personnel, working on a county property. You have to set up a lease and different things like that. It becomes a completely different completely different thing. But my understanding is they pulled the last gravel bed out of that space a few years ago because they wanted the space for the park equipment.
I think it's worth exploring at the very least. And I do think, like, in terms of management of it, it's a good opportunity for the community tree council to use like the land trust has a group that they the conservation corps, essentially. What do they call them? The Athens Land Trust has a group called Young Conservation Stewards. They're working on with Carrie, what's Carrie's last name? But they have a forestry person working with this young group, trying to get them out there to give them the skills that's exactly this thing, maintain. I also think it's an opportunity for either of the high schools to work with their, they both have agricultural programs that, or horticultural programs. That's Clarke Central. I think that Cedar Shoals actually has an ag program. And so it is this isn't a small thing. I agree with you, and I think that it has a million layers of details that would have to be figured out, and probably none of the first ideas is going to be the final idea. But I do think it's a good direction for like the community to go. And I don't think it would end our relationship with nurseries as a community by any stretch. But I do think I just like the idea of us being more, independent in that, especially like the development of the Office of Sustainability. It seems like a natural sort of pull towards our community managing resources closer at home, and so, I mean, getting trees from North Carolina or Florida is, I mean, I'm, I'm really a proponent of breaking up the grid, so.
So
I'm all about small grid.
the cost of a 5 to 6 foot tall bare root tree will rarely exceed $30 or $40 per unit.
Well, if the landscaping spending $8,000 a year on plantings, and let's say we can replace 4,000 of that, that's $4,000 we could spend on management instead of planting. If we can supply that, so it's the budgetary item of it is not, I mean, we do have to make sure, and I've been starting this process to figure out, like, is it a
Landscape
resource that pays for
management won't be able
itself?
to do anything like that unless they're specifically budgeted for that task.
I understand. What do you guys think?
Well, having worked at a nursery, I can concur with Rodney. I mean, there's a lot of infrastructure costs, and and then oversight of plants. I mean, somebody's got to be there almost daily. And me and a buddy were growing perennials, but I mean, neither of us could get away for a vacation. We both needed to be close to our plants every day, and I just see that, the maintenance of that. If something in the system goes wrong, is somebody there every day to watch and make sure these things are watered, especially as they're getting established. And then the upfront costs. I like the idea. I still like the idea of the tree council having their own kind of hobby nursery, so to speak. But it would be on a real small scale. I don't know how we could get Athens-Clarke County to lease us some land, and at the end of the day, it could be an opportunity maybe to bring the people from the community in to grow trees and to be able to say we grew our own. But I think I'd agree with Rodney. We're probably not saving any money by having our own little hobby nursery, and planting stuff from seed, or getting really small whips planted and then growing them up to 7 gallons before we put them in the ground somewhere. So yeah, just my initial thoughts.
I know you guys are wise and you know a lot about this, but also like landscaping, they normally would have planted 100 trees that they didn't plant at all this year, because of there was no capital funds to ask for. So,
The materials aren't the issue in that, though. The
That's true.
materials are almost inconsequential. It really has
true.
much more to do with the labor and the administrative cost.
That's true. All right. Can we explore it a little more to see if there's some portion of it that would be of value? Do y'all have?
How would we do that? How would we explore it?
I don't know. I mean, where Joseph just says like a hobby, like to have like a specimen garden, like a CTC has a specimen garden. That might actually be good PR, if we have like a weekend where everybody comes and checks out the specimen thing. And so like, if we just have a teeny thing like that would make Phil manage.
And I have my little nursery at my house, and I have several neat little specimens, but
It's not a bad idea actually to do a tree tour. so we can host. I don't know if any of you guys know Janae Johnson, but she has basically this unbelievable arboretum in her backyard. I would love to tour that. But,
Well,
well,
I don't claim, I'm sorry, I don't claim to know much about this issue, but what it sounds like to me is that it's shifting what we do now, which is buying from local private nurseries, and it's shifting that responsibility onto the county. And maybe I just don't understand the bigger picture, but I think there's a reason that it is the way that it is. That I understand that we used to have a holding area type thing that was run by the county, and someone before Rodney got rid of it. And there has to be a reason we got rid of it. And now we've got relationships established with local nurseries. So if we were to start trying to do it ourselves, it probably wouldn't save that much money, because even if we save a little money, there's a lot of cost going into it. There's, the labor and then the watering and, all of that, and the staffing of it and the liability issues, and then the extra work for all the people who have to get it set up and manage it. But aside from the money issues, if it's a feel-good thing, it just seems like it's shifting what we do now, which is buy from a private local company, and it's shifting that onto having the government take that over. And I never want things to move in that direction. I never want the government to do more when we can actually do less and just actually patronize local businesses. But again, maybe I don't understand the bigger picture. This is a new concept for me.
I'm thinking of it as something that, like I said, does not necessarily interrupt our relationship with the nurseries that we work with, and it's something that enriches the complexity of like what we're able to do. And some of that would be like, now we have something that the young urban conservationists, can help with, give them something to do. But I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of work they can do in the parks, and, I'm sure leisure services could keep them busy until they leave this town, so there probably is avenues for that. I just think of it as something that as a sort of it sort of deepens the sophistication of what we can do. That's what I would hope it would be, because I think you're right. I mean, when we're doing something in bulk and we're doing some row plantings, or whoever's doing that, they're going to buy those from nurseries. That's all going to be, the DOT is not going to be involved in this kind of small planting. But when I think about Mike trying in the Office of Sustainability, trying to bring together the ecology, it seems like it would help if he had spots, if there was stuff that he could have that, just as a resource for us, where he could plant it when he needed it. But I don't know. And so, and the landscaping is also different in the way that they plant and the way they preserve. And so
There's a ton of nonprofits out there that are more than happy to give away trees. Getting tree stock is the easiest part of what we do. It's finding a home and caring for those trees once we get them. It's the challenge. I did, when I was the lead arborist at Montana State University, we had an in-house nursery, and we used it in-house. So it wasn't used for projects at all, but it was used, if a tree died, we could run and grab a tree out of the nursery and put it in there. And it worked okay. It didn't work perfectly. Those trees tended to get kind of beat up in the nursery by mowers. The irrigation system tended to need to be repaired a lot. We had a tree spade, which made that easier, but the biggest component of that is that I had dedicated time to apply toward that activity. And also had student workers that could help do some of the labor. From landscape management perspective, they will do some tree work in the winter, but in the summer, when it would be really important to take care of a grow site, all of the crews are busy mowing, and they have time to do nothing else. It's mowing and picking up trash and nothing else. So the timing of that doesn't work. And so that's one of the reasons that without dedicated funding, it wouldn't be feasible. Now, if a forestry crew was funded, some small scale activity could be possible, although I'm still not convinced it would be cost effective to do it that way.
That seems so. It's forestry with UGA. You're thinking like if there was some. I don't know of the value. I wonder if the value is in that if we develop a relationship. Right now, does landscaping or central services, or do we have some kind of relationship with the students?
I'm a student. I'm a student at Warnell right now. I mean, we've got Whitehall. We have all of Whitehall. And Whitehall is just full, it's got greenhouses, nurseries, everybody's got planting shops, everybody, everybody has their space at Whitehall and they're doing all their experiments. And, it's all dedicated space and dedicated labor.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine that anybody would take this on as a responsibility because everybody's doing their own research.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I think that's good progress and discussion of it at the very least. And let me think on that. So for you guys, Rodney, Lee, Joseph, for outside of talking me out of a tree bank and working towards good clearing up language for trees for the planning commission, is there anything that you've been thinking about? Like you guys were actually on this committee before me, so I don't know if there's something that you had wanted to do that has not been brought forward.
I mean, I've got a few things, and I can I'll email you. I've been meaning to email you. I've been swamped and trying to find some time here, but trees in downtown currently, Rodney's heard this before, but currently trees are not required in downtown. And, some of the new development that's happened downtown, they have not replaced the trees they've taken out. There's no penalty for removing trees. And I think that the character of downtown is changing and it's going away from the charm that we and those spaces we really love to a harsher environment. And so I would like to explore at least, meeting with the Downtown Development Authority and maybe some people who are close to, the development of downtown about requiring trees to be installed, with new projects. They are expensive and there's definitely challenges there, but many other downtowns are requiring them and are making sure they're done and they work great. And so that's one of the things on my list. Then another thing is in our code is the street tree requirement. Currently we're required to have street trees at 30 feet on center. And I think that's honestly for me that in my study, in my experience, that's great for medium and small canopy trees, but large canopy trees, that's a bit too tight. There's one project off of Barnett Shoals Road, I think it's Lakewood, where they planted trees 30 feet on center. These, I think, are willow oaks, and you can barely even see the houses. They just seem to be on top of each other. These trees are already in each other's space after 10 years of being planted. So, other municipalities I've seen require 40 feet on center for large canopy. Some even 50. There's some projects I've been involved in that 20 years ago or 30 years ago, they put in oak trees 50 feet on center, and it looks great now. And you've got a nice canopy over the roads. The trees are just now kind of growing into each other, and they seem to be healthy. So that's another thought out there. And then real quick,
That is a scaling issue for zoning though, like, for the RS1, RS5, like that requirement wouldn't fly. But for the AR zones, and all that as it develops, those larger lots, that's certainly a possibility. I don't think it's in the language at all, the distinction between any of the zoning categories and the setback. Ronnie, do you
No,
know
it's
who
not.
the downtown plantings? I felt like a million years ago when they put in the ginkgos, there was a group that did it, and I'm not sure if it was CTC or not. And then, of course, the ginkgos had to be removed, and there was another round of putting them in. But I thought it was a part. I thought it was it planning? Who currently looks at downtown trees? Do we know?
I think the Downtown Development Authority is a big piece of that. In the past, I know there have been citizen groups. There's been a lot of exuberance about planting trees downtown. As you know, downtown, urban setting trees are problematic at best. The average lifespan of one of these trees is 12 years. We're getting more than that out of these trees, but they do get run down quick. There's just not enough soil space for them there. So there's a ton of utilities. There's very little soil space. There's a lot of contaminants. People literally dumping their mop water on the trees, when they clean up their restaurants at night, and other things being dumped on these trees. So it is a real challenge. And there is no easy solution. The Athens community loves their downtown trees, and I think that's the best asset when it comes to trying to find a way to keep trees downtown.
And it seems like if we develop a schedule, I agree with Joseph. I think it is a character of downtown, that would be a tragedy if we just let it go. And it will always not be, it won't be large trees. And you're right, there'll be a few that make it 20 years, but most of them will make it less than that. So some kind of setting up a schedule like replacement, which basically means we have to find the money. That's what it means. And so I'll add that to the agenda. And so let's start to look into who is it. Athens Downtown Development Authority, are they the ones that would be in charge of that? And so let's start finding out who thinks they're responsible for the trees, and then we can start with the responsibility and then figure out funding. Like funding may be able to come from Athens Downtown Development Authority. It could be, could be able to come from planning. Who knows? But first, let's find out who claims responsibility for it right now. Does landscaping do like the lights and the pruning, and they remove them?
Yes. Yes, the buildings call center does pruning and the lights and that sort of thing. The Cleveland redo project, that's a SPLOST project. So they purchased all those trees that are going in up there. There has been conversations about growing chambers, which is really the ideal way to do it. And that can be
small planting resource. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, it can be cost prohibitive. You're looking at $18,000 per tree to do it that way. And with all the infrastructure, that was deemed to be impossible. So you would really have to look at a long-term strategy in order for that to be successful.
I love that idea of, especially of us to develop a long-term strategy, because I would not want the downtown trees to go away. So if we make my small planting resource the resource that renews the downtown trees, it's a win-win.
The best workaround they have right now is using structural soils to try to improve the functionality of the trees. It works to some level, but the structural soil does burn out after a period of time.
Ronnie, do you have numbers on like the cost per tree, like a lifetime cost of downtown tree, so we can have an idea of what we're asking and give us a concept? How many trees do we think we have downtown? 100, 200?
I could tell you specifically how, well, I can't yet, but no, there's at least There's probably at least 200-300.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's
didn't
gonna be a big
re-inventory
number.
that area, so I don't know precisely how many trees there are.
Well,
This is
I'd
a
like to-
tangent, but Rodney, are there any plans to replant the trees along the courthouse that were? I mean, they've got the structural soil, I believe, there, and then
Are you
planted
talking about
trees.
the dogwoods that were removed out front?
Yes, they were cut to the ground.
Yes, there are plans, and right now that's a funding issue, I believe. But there are definite plans to replace them.
Anyway, the tree council could step in there and support planting those trees. That just seems like, I was just thinking would be a great place.
Yeah, we could do advocacy. Like if you need advocacy for that, totally let us know.
I would have to ask about that. I could ask about it and come back around with what the response was.
And we have those trees the tree that owns itself, we've got those seedlings that we're trying to get homes for. That would be a good home right in front of the courthouse.
Well, I don't think there's quite enough space for those white oak there. But.
Okay.
I'm done. You guys, anything you need to add?
I'll send a follow-up email with
Thank you.
some more of the.
We'll get this on to talk about in the
topics.
February meeting. I think this is good.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
All right.
You guys have a good evening.
Bye, all you too.
Bye, Mary. Bye, Joe.
Yeah, see you.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi, Rodney.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go dark here again.
Stacy.
I just did an hour of the education committee. I mean, of the policy committee. I need like a 2-minute break. I will be right back.
Understandable.
Hey everyone, it's Holly. I'm joining in.
Oh, hi Holly.
I'm Holly. Hey, welcome. We're so glad to have you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I understand. I remember from your interview, you were particularly interested in education.
Yep.
Yep.
I am.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, Holly, my name's Stacy Farrell. I work with Keep Athens-Clarke County Beautiful.
Yeah, I think we've met before. It's been years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, you look familiar. So, and I've been on the CTC for almost for like 18 years. It's been a really long time. So, and I kind of serve as an ex officio member, sort of as a bridge to other government organizations and government events and things. And I can kind of be helpful in that way. I don't always take a lead role on things because I actually run a nonprofit myself. So it's kind of, just more about being a connection. So I just kind of want to share that a little bit. And also to say that Edith and Leah have been taking this and taking charge of it. And I love it. I love sitting in the back seat. I thank you guys so much for your hard work, because a lot of times, like right now, I'm at home with my kids working from home, and my own nonprofit, like we have so much going on. So I have to kind of take a back seat. So I just want you ladies to know how much I appreciate all the work that you're doing. And I feel slightly guilty sometimes because I'm just not able to contribute as much right now. So just know that.
I think the wisdom of your past experience is much appreciated and needed. So,
well, thank you. Thank you for making me feel better about my guilt. So.
I'm being retired. I'm in a position to have, the luxury of time. So I'm still, as a new member, trying to find direction in what I'd like to do. But I do feel like the community needs so much education with regard to trees, rather than viewing them as something that makes a mess or, is unnecessary. And Lee, have you met Holly?
Yeah, I know Holly.
Okay.
Very well.
Very, very well.
And probably a lot more than she was to see of me lately.
Oh no!
I hear in each other's faces all the time.
We have one other other member on the education committee, Seth, who I think is in Clayton, so said he probably would not be able to make the meeting today.
Seth Hawkins.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know Seth very well.
small world, isn't it?
It's a small tree world.
It is.
Yeah.
I keep encountering the same people over and over, and it's great.
Yeah.
So we don't have a chairperson. This has been very informal, and are we supposed to be observing Robert's Rules of Order, or which I'm not familiar with at all?
It hasn't been a problem on I'm on the policy committee, and there's 4 or 5 of us. I don't know. We don't have any motions. I guess it hasn't come up.
I feel like things move more rapidly if we're not bound by that.
Well, I nominate you for chairperson, so there.
I'm glad you're tired. I'd be glad to try.
I second that.
We are observing rules of order. I will give that a try, and if there's something, just kick me under the table if there's something I'm forgetting about that I should be doing, and I'll take minutes too and send those to Joe.
He sent out an agenda. Did you get that?
Yeah. I think we were supposed to. Let me see. We're going to discuss it. It was going to be a very loose and formal meeting. I doubt that it'll last an hour. Holly, we had identified some goals for the new year coming, and one of those was perhaps maybe additional goals. You may have something to suggest after we share those with you. Trying to see what they were now. One of them I know we wanted to talk about was the feasibility of a spring project, and being that we're getting a late start, I don't know. Have y'all had any ideas about what to do with that?
It's hard to know what we can do. With the state of the world, it's hard to know what we even can do.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll say also, I've been on calls all morning, and one particular call kind of dealt with this issue about the second round of rescheduling what used to be an in-person event. There were some folks from UGA on the call as well, and one of the members, basically said UGA is anything like up until April for sure. They're not doing any in-person events, and then they're not quite sure after. But for the folks that were on that call, there was just a lot of discussion about, what do we do? Do we plan for one, then have to cancel again? That kind. And in the end, folks just decided that really to kind of step outside of that box and think about doing something different this year rather than trying to go into an in-person event with trepidation, So I just want to share that because I think I just spent a whole hour talking about this.
Yeah, we actually can attend events, but it's recommended that we don't. We have to get special permission to do it, and I'm part of planning this workshop for March right now in Tennessee, and I'm like, I'm not feeling entirely comfortable. But I wonder if there is a way. I don't know what kind of events you do in the spring. It sounds like it's been in person in the past, but I wonder if there's a way that you can bring attention to trees where it's not going to be people necessarily interacting heavily, or if it can be some sort of passive educational event. And for example, for the Marigold Festival several years ago, now granted this was during a festival, we hung these educational tree tags that talked about tree benefits, and they were just hanging in the trees or strapped onto the trees, and it was just a way to bring attention to all the benefits that trees bring to us. Yeah, I don't know, something like that, or directing people to a website. I don't know. I could think of some things maybe.
It seems like we should do more advertising or get our name out there a little bit more. And maybe I'm having mission creep and this is more promotion. But if we could maybe advertise through neighborhood associations. Lee had a great idea with scavenger hunt, which would be pretty virtual. I mean, I think there are a lot of parents homeschooling right now that or had not elected to do that, but just are having to do it out of necessity. And I'm wondering if that would somehow tie in with the Champion Trees program. I mean, if we could maybe plagiarize. I don't know if you call it that, but
Borrow.
yes, maybe generalize on a good idea. How many champion trees do we have in Athens-Clarke County?
Seth would know. I know we have a few, but Seth would know. They just found another co-champion in Winterville recently.
What was it?
God, you remember, Holly? Was it a sawtooth?
We were talking about a sawtooth oak, but I don't know if that was just someone
tell you.
saw
I gotta
that
look
or
up
if
the
it actually
minutes.
was a co-champion.
I can tell you. I just gotta look up minutes. Hang on.
So something I've been thinking about that I don't know if it's appropriate for spring, but some of you may know that we've planned the Winterville tree walks, and I would really like to bring people to the Greenway. And I teach a dendrology lab here at UGA, and I want to do some tree ID walks on the Greenway or on the Firefly Trail. And I mean, that's something that you can socially distance and do. People can be spaced out. We're outside. I guess I'm thinking about it more in the fall, but it's something I've talked to some of my UGA or some of my Warnell colleagues about and trying to gauge their interest if they might be, open to being part of that as well. And it could even expand to being about more than trees. It could be part of a broader sort of getting people out on the Greenway, getting them more aware or increase their knowledge of the local ecosystems.
Yeah.
But that's something I'd really like to do, either with you guys or with UGA or something. That's something I want to try to plan for in the fall.
It was a sawtooth oak. Sorry to interrupt, but I just checked the minutes and it was a sawtooth oak. It's a co-champion, and it is 150 inches DBH. The height is 77 feet. The crown spread is 109. And they're going to remeasure it they're going to remeasure it in the summer when it may swell a little bit with water and all the good life flowing through it, and it might just increase an inch or two, and if it does, it'll be the champion. Because right now it's 1 point shy of the champion. So, wow. But yeah, Seth knows all that stuff right off the top of his head, how many champions there are. He's talked about it. I know there's a few. What about, like what Holly said, what about like tree tags on the Firefly? As you're biking on the Firefly and it could be something noticeable enough and it's informational, and I don't know. That does require budget though, because you gotta do the tree tags and we don't have budget.
Yeah, and we didn't laminate ours, so it would probably require a little lamination as well.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I just talked to Linda Ford at the Downtown Development Agency about getting a plaque or a sign for the moon tree that's downtown. And she said that they could probably cover the cost of it. But now that I'm saying this out loud, the Firefly isn't really downtown. Because I was thinking maybe they would pay for that, but that's not downtown.
I love the idea of a fall tree identification walk, because I think that there are just lots of folks that use the Greenway and they don't know, and it would be really interesting for both adults and children. Mm-hmm. And so I really love that idea. In regard to labels and things, we would have to talk to Leisure Services, of course, I think, and see if they have anything also planned, because we recently planted some trees on the new section of the Greenway. And I haven't been out there lately, but I don't know if there were any discussions about doing any kind of identification for the new plantings.
Yeah.
So.
Holly, would we, since I'm just wondering about partnering with the Winterville Tree Council, and maybe other organizations like Stacy, maybe the KACCB, for this event or for this endeavor. Maybe it wouldn't be an event. Maybe it would be more a certain period of time in which there'd be more signage or.
I think it would be great to have partners on it. I think having more people involved, either leading as far as like teaching people about different species that they see along the trail, or maybe someone comes along who's an ornithologist and knows the birds,
Oh yeah.
or a soil scientist, or it seems like you could, I originally thought of it as like we could get on bikes and go, because we could get further and see more, but you could have different speakers come along and participate, and maybe there could be I don't know, different organizations involved that represent some expertise, like if we were down by the river, talk about the species that grow along the river. But I think having partnerships would be really valuable to making it a success. And Lee is our new chair of our Winterville Tree Commission, so she could speak to whether they would want to be involved. I'm still ex officio, but pass that torch on.
Holly in the past organized the tree walks with Dr. Merkel, and did he do them both years? I was only there for 1 year.
No,
but it was really well attended.
I attended that. It was wonderful.
Oh, did you? Oh, neat. Yeah, Holly organized it.
Yeah.
I organized it with our commission, but it was a team. It was definitely a team effort. But yeah, it was fun, and we didn't do that every year. We talked about invasive plants 1 year, and another year we talked about tree planting and soil and different benefits of trees. So it's rotated each year that we've done it, but I think a partnership would be great.
Yeah, I'm sure Winterville Tree Commission would be up for that, but our membership is down really low right now. We just had three changes. One person rolled off the board. Holly moved outside city limits, so she's ex officio. And then another member of ours just got hired as the arborist in Winterville, so now he's ex officio. So we're down 3 people, and we didn't have a whole lot to start with. So, I mean, I'm sure there would be a person or two, at least myself included, that would be glad to help on this. And Stacy, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Oh, no, that's fine. I was just going to say that, Keep Athens-Clarke Kind of Beautiful does, the Christmas tree recycling program, and it's a tree exchange. So if you recycle your Christmas tree, then you get a tree seedling in return. And we almost always have leftover trees, and we often go to the CTC for events, and you guys know all that.
Yeah, Stacy just emailed me a half an hour ago saying that she's got seedlings left over and she doesn't know what to do with them.
Yep. And so we're always trying to find creative ways. We used to give them out to MLK. They have service volunteers that were interested. I mean, we've done all kinds of different things, but I don't know if the timing's right. What I was going to say is that anybody who participates could get a tree seedling, but I don't know that that's the best time to do a tree walk when all the leaves and stuff are in the middle of the January. So I'm not sure that's such a great idea, but it's just a thought that that's kind of another. Sometimes it's nice to be able to offer something to folks that come and participate, so they can go home and plant their tree and really. I don't know, have some action associated with what they've learned.
Yeah, I have some ginkgos I could donate.
Oh, fun.
We can't find homes for, there's a lot of trees right now that we just can't find homes for.
Well, I always like to tell just this quick story that back like 15 or so years ago, when Connie was she was on the CTC, and Athens first came to us and they wanted to donate 85 trees for, no, 75 trees for 75 years in Athens. And so Connie and I were charged with trying to find right-of-ways and county locations for 75 fairly large trees. I mean, not little whips, but and we struggled. I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy. I mean, we did it, but it was really hard because when you really start to pull in all the different factors, whether it's overhead power lines or private property rights or GDOT land or, all of that, it became super challenging. And so I always feel like when people are want to plant trees, I get nervous sometimes because I'm like, oh my gosh, you got to really know where you want to put them, And there are plenty of locations, but a lot of them are on government. They're like parks and greenways and stuff like that. They're not necessarily always where you really want them, Sometimes you want them in these areas that just don't have any foliage and, and for whatever, there's factors why you can't do that. So anyways, tree plantings are great. We just got to know where we're going to plant them.
Yeah, it's such a tricky year.
Yeah.
It's hard to plan things, and I think people have sort of online fatigue right now. I mean, it's like you can come up with all sorts of webinars, but I was thinking about a spring event, and you can, I'm teaching dendrology right now. I mean, you can certainly do a winter ID tree walk, but it's not as much fun. People they kind of look at the twigs and the buds, and they're like, Lee knows very well right now.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's not as exciting, and it could be a time it's kind of soon to try to pull something off like that. But thinking about a spring project, how's the tree council? I'm going to ask a lot of these questions. How is the tree council involved in the ACC Arbor Day celebration? Could we tag on to that to do some sort of spring event, like giving tree seedlings out?
Well, this year for Arbor Day, we're not advertising it publicly. We're going to do a tree planting on the Firefly, but I think it's all crepe myrtles. Although I saw something in the minutes about that a different committee was going to talk about doing chalk maples instead. But this year they don't want it advertised publicly because they don't want people there. We're just going to go. We're going to plant the trees. Maybe have a commissioner read the proclamation. Not yet, but that's what they talked about so far.
Now we have Earth Day, April 22nd, but that's probably not an ideal time to plant trees. And that may be too soon to do anything.
It could be a time to do something else, though, like this event, or scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
Is that what you were talking about, Lee?
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of like a school thing. Like the school, it could be kind of a virtual tree related activity that teachers could assign or families could take on, but it was more for kids, but it could certainly be adapted to adults.
I mean, I could see perhaps a school doing it for an extracurricular project, maybe out of a choice. I think you found that on the Arbor Day Foundation website, Lee.
Yeah, they've got a lot of ideas for virtual Arbor Days because it's one of the requirements of the Tree City program is that you have an Arbor Day, but they're waiving it again next year for cities, but they do have a good resource for if you want to do something virtual. A lot of good ideas, like partner with restaurants to give away seedlings, which is in fact what I'm going to email Stacy Smith back and suggest that she do that. I don't know.
That's actually a really interesting idea.
Yeah, at one of the schools, they had the students do historical locations and had them take a selfie or a picture at the location. I don't know if we'd want to do that. Maybe they could just take a picture of the tree to prove they were there, and if they complete it, they perhaps get a seedling, or we'd have to keep it fairly simple because April's 3 months away. I don't know if there'd be time to organize for that. And then we'd have to probably get it out there to the public schools. I don't know, Stacy, I'm not familiar with organizationally how you deal with the green school. I guess you go through each coordinator at each school?
Yeah, so the Green School program does work with all the schools, and each school has a Green School coordinator, and we try and distribute information and resources through that coordinator. But we also do oftentimes have individual teachers that connect with us. In terms of like Arbor Day and doing things, I think this is a really good time to be having this discussion, because oftentimes the schools, they have like they have their school year planned out. And by the time we start trying to talk about doing something, it's very, very hard to squeeze tree education or plantings or event into their schedule. But so knowing, we might want to do something, we can, the spring and summer is a good time to talk about next year. But we have those connections to the Green School coordinators, and then some of the principals as well are active with us. So did that answer the question?
It did, and it led to another question. I'm
Okay.
wondering if we could piggyback on something that they're doing. I mean, I'd be glad to contact the coordinators and just see if, our mission fits in with a project they've got going on and that we might be able to help with, rather than our starting from the ground up.
So interestingly, it used to be that the arborist, and this is kind of like back when Mark was here, was very active with the Green School Committee. And so he served as a representative also for the Community Council in helping to, helping to sort of bring tree lessons and things to the schools. Because of what happened, he didn't have a lot of time to do that, but his predecessors did. There were people who were very active, like Maureen O'Brien, if anybody knows Maureen. That really, kind of had a plan, and they were a part of the Green School program. So being a part of the program meant that they had connection to all those resources, teachers and newsletters. We send out like a monthly newsletter, the Acorn. So, I mean, that still is wide open, because we absolutely want to have tree education being a part of that Green Schools program. That was a long answer to say yes, though. Yes.
Do schools do something for Earth Day that we could add to or join in on, so that it doesn't create something else for the school to do or to fit into their schedule?
So every school's different. It changes kind of all the time. Most of the schools do something, I would say. For us back in the day, we would always do our Arbor Day celebration in February, and we always pre-selected the school, and that day, it wasn't taking on anything. It was like, Chase Street Elementary is our school this year, where we'll do our Arbor Day presentation, and usually we would plant a tree that owns itself, or the grandbaby of the tree that owns itself. But Earth Day is in April, and we really, at least in the past, that's just been a little too late for us to do plantings. Really tried to do them in February or early March, but sometimes that doesn't work out. So I don't know if Earth Day, I don't know if that would, because it's late April.
Yeah.
Earth Day is. It's just kind of late for planting. I feel like. But Holly, you guys may have, better information. But for us, we try to not do tree plantings in April, because it gets so darn hot so early.
Yeah, I think. Really, like November to February, sort of tree planting time, and I never encourage anyone to plant after that. But there could be other things we could do during Earth Day. Granted, with COVID, it makes it tricky, but it wasn't this year, and it wasn't in 2020, but 2019. I was trying to remember if we did this around Earth Day, but with the Winterville Elementary, the Winterville Tree Commission we did a tree ID, a sort of overview of, so we had planted 38 or 48 trees at the Winterville Elementary through the Making the Shade program. And we wanted to teach the students about just basic things about how to care for trees, just so they wouldn't like rip the bark off or break the branches, and also just have a sense of ownership, like these are their trees. And so Seth Hawkins did a little talk with second and third graders about, basics of taking care of trees and how to water, how to put mulch around a tree. And then we talked about photosynthesis as well, and like just how trees make food, and then talked about IDing some basic trees or some common trees. And there were a couple of challenges with that event, but considering it was hot and they brought the students out on a big asphalt parking lot and there was no shade because the trees we planted hadn't created shade yet. So, but anyway, I like the idea of that. And I think we did that around National Arbor Day, which is close to Earth Day. And it was just a really great way to connect to the students about trees. And so I think that there are opportunities that are non-tree planting, that we could do at Earth Day that we're still tree centric somehow. It's still COVID world.
Yeah. And, I'm wondering, well, I know some of the parents don't know from week to week if their children will be attending school or not. It's like they go and then there's an outbreak and then it's on hold and then they go back again. Stacy, this is I have loads of questions for you today. Do you know if any of the schools are creating outdoor classrooms using natural materials like logs or I know with schools, one of the focus in the last 5 years has been on security. But this has put, the pandemic's put a different spin on things. And I think teachers are trying to do in-person classes to get kids outdoors more. Do you know if any of the schools are doing that?
Yeah, so every school in Clarke County has a garden of sorts. They vary from school to school. And some schools do have outdoor classrooms that are a little bit more advanced than others, I would say. Stacy Smith, who works for me, is in charge of our school garden program. And so she kind of knows the details on each school, who has what, who needs what. It's, right now is a little funky. Like we just did Martin Luther King Day of Service. And although I wasn't with you guys I wasn't with the Tree Council that day because I'm on the bigger steering committee and I was at a different site. And there were several school sites and there were several teachers and administrators that were really trying to take this opportunity to do work outside where it's socially distancing, but they could accomplish some things that beautification wise for the schools. And so outdoor classrooms kind of were one of them. But there's always a need. They can always do more. Always. It's just whether or not they have the leaders within their own school community. So like some schools are really active and other schools we're constantly knocking at the door. Keep Athens-Clarke County Beautiful does offer what are called Green School grants. So we offer up to $2,000 for teachers to get materials and resources for outdoor classrooms specifically. And usually what we do is anything that we can get for free, mulch, soil, like I can get free compost for that from the landfill. We try and connect them to those resources, but then we do offer monies for them for hardscaping, for things like you were talking about. But yeah, I mean, there's always a need for that. They can always do more. They can always, there's always schools that need just a little or they don't have the leadership. So the answer is yes. Again, long answer to yes. But it's hard to tell gosh, it's going to be so hard. Like if the kids go back to school in the fall, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens to some of these other things. Because I think they're going to be playing a lot of catch up. And so it may be that, you know, offering grants or materials or resources might be great, but it is a big question mark about how much interest there'll be when they go back to school. So
I was wondering if there's one particular school where we could just contribute in some way to the outdoor classroom.
So I think actually we should ask Stacy Smith because she knows the schools that have the greatest need.
Oh, I'm going to email her anyway. You want me to include that in the email?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a great idea. Because she, you know, it's an ebb and flow. Every year it's different. Sometimes you have parents that come in and they're super active. Like I'm a parent to Chase Street, and Chase Street parents are super active with the outdoor gardens. I mean, it's just a part of that school. And so we don't usually need that kind of stuff as much as say Stroud does, or, you know, Cleveland Road, or so she'll know.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm just going to ask her whether any particular school needs our help.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so there is a process, like if you're, so when you say our help, like planting trees or helping to create an outdoor classroom, is that what you're?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So then what happens like is you almost always have to have a champion within the school, because there is a process where we have to go through the district. Like say you looked at a school that really, really needed some love, like Game School Elementary, right? And you know, you wanted to start to create this outdoor classroom. There is a process where kind of an agreement with the school district. And you have to have somebody from within that school to be on board to give. And so it's, you know, it's not, and that's a protection, because it used to be that, nothing against UGA folks, but sometimes professors and teachers would get like this great idea to do a project, and they would bring their students in and they would do a project, and there was no plan for sustainability. Like there was no plan for whatever the project was that they did. Nobody was taking care of it after they left. And it caused a lot of problems in the school district, and it put a bad taste in a lot of administrators' mouths. Like the school district, like certain schools were like, no way, we don't want anybody doing projects here anymore, because we had to deconstruct something. Or so now Keep Athens-Clarke County Beautiful came in many years ago and said, okay, what if we help administer, we keep a record, we go through all the right channels so that this doesn't ever happen again. So that's what Stacy Smith does, is she makes sure that things are lined up. And then when schools need volunteers, she helps them find volunteers. Like she's helping to make sure that things like gardens don't fall into despair. So again, going back to her, she will know, but there is a process where the school district has to approve, you know, a project, and there has to be a champion. There has to be like a leader within the school that's going to really champion it. So.
What a process. Okay.
I mean, it's a good process. It's good. I didn't mean to make it. It's just that it's like, if you're going to do it right, you know, so that it has long-lasting benefits to the students and the school. So that's what we do. That's what we try and do. So it's not hard. It's just, you know, you just have to like follow the steps.
Okay.
It's first just nice to know that there are those steps. And so that's good with your knowledge of that and experience with that. Like that we could, you know, if we decided to go this route, just end up spinning our wheels for a long amount of time, not knowing that there is that process. So it's good to know that.
Yeah, we used to do, Stacy Smith and I used to do a presentation years ago. What was it called? It was called, oh my gosh, it was, oh, I can't think of the name of it now, but it was basically, it was like the flowers and weeds of school gardens. It was something like that, because it was like, we had so many examples of school gardens and things like that that just didn't, they kind of failed because they didn't have it didn't plan correctly. And then you have schools where it didn't fail because they did. And so we used to kind of talk about that a lot within our own community to say, yes, we want you guys to come in and help, but we really have to know what, we have to have a plan. So it is good. It's always really sad when you see somebody put a ton of work into like a raised garden bed and it's beautiful hardscape, and then it's just like, the school district, they contract out a lot of their mowing and landscaping. And so sometimes you have to be real careful about what you're doing to make sure you protect it from, being mowed, or, you know what I mean? You got to be kind of careful. So.
I'm always, this is kind of side note, I don't want to take us too far out onto this direction, but so I spent a lot of time in Winterville, 9 years, and I often walked to Little City Diner, which goes right by the elementary school on the way, and I've helped plant trees at the elementary school, and we did this day, and we had a couple of teachers who were advocates for bringing us in to do this activity around National Arbor Day. And there's one thing that I noticed about like Winterville Elementary, and a lot of the schools have huge properties, and most of it's just mowed, at least in Winterville Elementary. And I love birds, so I do a lot of bird watching, and there are 2 or 3 pairs of killdeer birds. They're ground-dwelling birds, and so they lay their eggs on the ground, and they live on the schoolyard. And I watch them year after year, and they probably just move as the mowers move around. But I'm just thinking about how a lot of schools, and this could be part of like getting kids interested in trees, is just thinking beyond like the school garden or the playground to like the environment around their school, and that it actually isn't just grass and concrete. Like there's actually life there, and it's thriving in some cases. In some cases not too, but I think it'd be interesting to, I don't know, again, I'm going off on this other direction, but I always was fascinated by these killdeer birds. And did any of the students know that they were out there? Because they're such a cool bird.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's really.
And don't have yards, and I think to focus on the schoolyard is important. With kids that get maybe a seedling, I'm thinking, well, if you have a child that lives in an apartment, what are they going to do with it?
Yeah.
It's.
Yeah, I mean, I could get on my soapbox too about schools and their poor planning for their natural environment, especially as they have renovated and created new buildings year after year after year. It used to be, you guys, the CTC, the policy committee, was really active in trying to work with the school district, because they were just not planning for trees. They were not planning for their outdoor environments. And that's when like Melissa, Brian and I used to work together to do the Made in the Shade grants, because you really did, you'd see these schools pop up and they would put the playgrounds in and they would put no trees. And there'd be these like this playground with this like metal, dome that gets to be 125 degrees in the middle of a Georgia summer. And you're thinking, what were you thinking? Like these kids can't get on that slide. It's too hot, So it's kind of funny because I can get on a little bit of soapbox myself about some of those issues, because for so many years we've kind of watched this happen. But the CTC did a great job back in the day of really going in front of mayor and commission and the school board and saying, you guys need to talk. You need to talk about this stuff. So.
One of the things that's just driven me crazy is to go by a playground and see them spraying herbicide on the grass. And there are children playing in this. And if there was shade there, you wouldn't have all the weeds. So, there's a lot to be done.
They do what they think is easiest and quickest.
Yeah.
Wondering, do we have any? It sounds like we do have an additional goal of maybe doing a fall event with a firefly trail,
or the Greenway. I'm not sure how much of the
Greenway.
Yeah, I would really be interested in that.
So we're talking about the Greenway more than the Firefly Trail since parts of it aren't completed yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long is the Greenway? It's what, 3 or 4 miles or?
Well, they've added all these spurs onto it, so it depends where you go.
Yeah. My husband and I walked one Thanksgiving Day, and it wasn't real shady. In fact, he wanted to turn back. He said it's too hot. What portion would we do cover? I'm thinking about this in terms of partnerships.
I was kind of thinking about like somewhere that left from downtown. Maybe at where the old Jittery Joe's roaster was on North Broad, and sort of heading out that way. I know there's a few different ways you can go there. Like you can go down to the river, towards the river. There was an old part. I'm confused, like the full Greenway path, and the updates have gotten me a little fuzzy. I haven't been on it since they've added some of the new legs, and so I'm not the one to ask, but I was roughly thinking sort of the downtown-ish area. But going from Sandy Creek also has a lot of benefits because it's a nice forested area. It would be shaded. There are a lot of different species there, so there's definitely. I think I would probably need to go and walk it out and see where we have the most variety.
I was just about to ask, is there someone that would like to scout this out?
I mean, I could.
Great. Okay.
Well, we've got a Winterville Tree Council meeting at 6 o'clock tonight, and I can bring. I'm on Zoom all day. It's a day full of Zoom. I can bring up the question of partnering to do this. What specifics should I mention? That it would be in the fall, and that it would be a Greenway type project that would probably start from downtown, or we're still scouting it, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, in past years we've talked about doing our like Winterville Tree Walk beyond Winterville and going other places, and so it wouldn't have to be called the Winterville Tree Walk, but it could be similar. It could be a tree ID walk. I was gonna say if we did it later in the fall, we could give out tree seedlings, but I think then we would also have lost the leaves at that stage when it was appropriate for planting.
What would be the ideal month to do it in?
October is good because it's not as hot. Early-ish October.
Yeah.
And but you still have most leaves retained on the trees. Some trees will have lost their leaves, but you still have good retention. So October is a good time.
It'd have to be a non-football weekend if we did it downtown. If we even have football, I mean, I get maybe,
I mean, it could be an away game, or it could be, sometimes there's night games. We could do it during the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, or if there's even football.
Yeah. Okay. And Lee, you were talked to or emailed Stacy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What other loose ends do we have? Just maybe thinking about what partners we would want for this project.
I mean, I can ask the KCCP board of directors if you are interested in me doing that. I can absolutely do that.
I was thinking if we're out, I know Keep Athens-Clarke County Beautiful doesn't just do like. Okay, I have to admit my connection with Keep Athens-Clarke County Beautiful is like trash pickup on the side of the road. I know that's not all you do because I bought a compost bin from you too. So there's a lot of things, but I think that a walk or a bike ride or whatever could meet some of the objectives of Keep Athens-Clarke County Beautiful, because even if it's trash, I've seen a lot of trash along the Greenway, and it's like, hey, bring people out there, make them aware of the beauty of the space and how it's important to take care of it. So it's like multiple objectives can be met, and I guess thinking about what objectives we have with the event.
So we could maybe even partner with the ACC recycling group, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, that's the department where KCCB lives, is in the solid waste department, and the recycling division are our colleagues. I was just gonna say, I mean, not that you would invite folks to come do a tree walk and pick up litter, but you always could. You always could. We do what's called trashercise, which is like walking and having a nice time, but picking up litter just because you're there and leading by example. So I mean, if we wanted to add that element, we could. Or the other thing is, we always like to talk about back in the day before there was like an arborist. We used to do. You ladies, we've talked about this. We used to do a bunch of the tree lessons in the schools. So because Keep Athens-Clarke Kind of Beautiful does have kind of a large umbrella to a lot of different environmental education activities, but we used to talk about leaf litter and how important leaf litter is. And so that could be a portion of it too, Holly. It's fall and we're going into this, and maybe, having that, just kind of bringing that little element in as well. So.
Yeah, my master's was in soil science, and I love talking about mulch.
Yeah, I'm sure we love talking about compost. That's like us in the solid waste department. We love to talk trash. We don't care what trash it is. We talk every kind of trash, and you can't get us to stop. And actually, we've realized that within our own department, people, like everywhere we go, like we could be at a party drinking beer, and people are asking us questions about compost and recycling and litter, and and it's because everybody generates waste. It's the one thing that we all have in common. Well, there's several things, but one thing is, it doesn't matter your socioeconomic level. It doesn't matter your education level. It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter your gender or the color of your skin. You create trash, So it's a really, like, we talk all the time talking trash. So
it's like everybody poops.
That's right. Everybody poops. That's right. That's right. That's right.
Okay. So
Well, I can by the next. You guys meet monthly, right?
we do, and this
It's usually the third. We got bumped because of the holiday.
As part of the education committee.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said, Edith.
Oh, can we officially add you as part of our education committee, as a member of it?
I'd love to be.
You're great. So,
that's why I joined.
Oh, and the other thing we were supposed to do was prioritize our goals, and I think we've decided that maybe a spring project is overreaching. We could still do some educational outreach. We prioritize our 2021 goals.
Well, I'll find out from Stacy Smith if any school needs our help creating an outdoor classroom, or, we can at least be on her resource list for volunteers if a school needs a volunteer or anything Earth Day related. I'll just ask her about all that. So that's kind of a goal on there too. And then I'll bring it up tonight at Winterville Tree Commission about partnering on this, the Fall Greenway project, which this is a really good idea.
Good summary, Lee. What should be, given we, probably all of y'all more than me have limited time, what should our main goal be this year?
Do we have to have a main goal? Like, do we have to pick one?
We could pick two.
Well, we could be assistants for public schools through the Stacy Smith connection, and then we could do the fall project. That could be a goal.
And then the fall event.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that's what I meant by fall project.
We've covered everything we were supposed to do today.
Cool.
Wow.
Because you're an awesome chairperson.
That's right.
be willing to give me the boot soon.
Well, and the thing Edith, what I like about this too is because I did just get off a call about a similar situation, is that we have enough time to be good planners of like a nice fall event. I feel like, you know, like if now we sort of, the next time we meet, we can really start to do a good job planning it and publicizing it and not rushing it, because sometimes you end up rushing things. So.
Everything's still a little bit tentative, and I do like the idea of just information gathering. I think we can make better decisions then. So, do we need to cover anything else?
No, wait.
So I was going to say, do you formally accept to be the chairperson for the committee? Yay! Cool. Thank you, Edith.
Edith. Hey, Lee, you guys just mentioned, when is our CTC meeting? I think I had it wrong on my calendar. When is our big meeting?
It was the week before Martin Luther King Day. And so the committee meetings, these were supposed to be on Martin Luther King, but we got bumped.
Oh, right.
It's a holiday. So the regular CTC is still like, what, the second Monday of every month? Okay.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. I was worried I had it wrong in February. Okay.
Yeah. So we're, Holly, we meet, it's typically the third Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the meetings start at 12 and
well,
so
this committee meeting starts at 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
And our meeting 3.
Yeah, all the committee meetings start at 12. They go 12 to 4, but education, each one has an hour or less, and so education starts at 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that on the agenda. I went to the city website, and I was glad it was at 3 because I couldn't have done noon.
Yeah, me either. I was in class.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for letting me join y'all. I'll do.
Okay.
I'll head out to the Greenway and start scouting out some places.
Right.
Cool. All right, Holly. I'll see you in 2 hours.
Great to see you. Have a good week. Bye. Bye.